MakingStarWars.net.
Assman.
Assman?
Yeah, Assman, Jerry. I'm Cosmo Kramer, the Assman.
Bishop's got bucks. Bishop's got bucks. Bishop's got bucks. So good on the show. So good on the show.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jason Ward from MakingStarWars.com, and today I got the George Costanza of Bespin Bulletin. Bespin Bulletin.
Accurate. Yeah.
So over the last few weeks, few months, I guess, actually, you and I have been discussing numbers while we play a gentleman's game of Fortnite. You know, people don't really realize how sophisticated our games really are. There's like a martini usually. We talk shop, we talk business, you know, the stuff everybody wants to know. That what's on everybody's mind, you know. How are things really doing? It's real talk, you know. And you said, I'm going to take those numbers and I'm going to bring the real talk to your show because I'm tired of all this fake nonsense. Is what you said.
I got tired of fake nonsense later on, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Most of that is just a lie, obviously. We're just playing Fortnite, talking.
yeah. Like I always have an interest in like numbers, whether it's to do with box office or streaming or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the Disney stuff, you know, they only ever put out the numbers for the first episode themselves officially. So then you've got to work off of whether it's Samba numbers to get an early little pool of it, and then beyond that, like you wait for the Nielsen numbers, which only reflects like the US. So they're never ever accurate, you know. But like you saw like the stupid stuff of, you know, some places were like trying to make inflate the numbers by removing the recaps and the credits, which are part of the runtime, which is added by Nielsen, and it's how Disney ever encountered it themselves, because it's the minutes watched divided by the runtime is how they get to their like quote view, and the view itself it's not necessarily accurate because it doesn't account it includes people watching the episode multiple times and other episodes that air that week. So say now we're on Ahsoka episode 5. If people that week are watching from 1 to 5, it's counted in the week 5 numbers. When in reality, you know what I mean? Like it shouldn't count.
It's it's a lot more complicated. It's like that takes like the snowball and the series momentum of all of the episodes and then applies it to the current week.
Right. Yeah. So you see like a show like Suits, which has been #1 for like 12, 13 weeks on the Nielsen streaming chart, and it's like 9 seasons or something, and like so people can just binge it, and because of the amount of episodes that's available, it's going to have a really high, you know, minutes watch count because of that. So it's hard to, and that's with the multiple season thing. So like something like The Mandalorian, they're on season 3, but they are counting the past seasons as well. So like it'll be Mandalorian season 3 week 1, but they'll include seasons 1 and 2. So if people do want to rewatch up until the release, it's included. So again, it's not accurate.
Right.
You know.
So let's what Royal Fino just said. Let's read that really quickly and then use that to like kind of hit on a bit of like the methodology that you use to compile the numbers a little bit. He says, Royal Fino says, I said this the other day to people speculating. We see a fraction of the numbers that Disney has access to and actually care about. So the speculation online is just solving a puzzle with a few corner pieces. Yeah. I mean, agreed.
Pretty much. It's not like HBO. So HBO, they put out the unique viewership. So they're telling you the number of households that are viewing an episode. So if you go back and look at The Last of Us, it's like over 20 million views a week. Viewers a week, not views. Like they're not doing the Disney Netflix method of runtime, like the minutes watched divided by the runtime. They're not doing that. They're doing it in a more traditional sense. So yeah, that's the problem with this stuff. Without these companies, because of the streaming world we live in now, these companies are gonna they have the opportunity to hold back the true numbers and tell you what they essentially want to tell you. So there was a comment in there, and this has been annoying me for the past a few days. There's a comment in there from Frog Eater. Like before we went live, like 15 minutes before we went live, this just like came in and it was like, but the Loki thing, and it's annoying because
Frog Eater said it did better than Andor, which got a second season, and its finale topped the Loki season 2 premiere. So I think it's a success, and we'll get a second and final season of Ahsoka on Disney Plus in fall of 2026.
Right. So this is what annoys me is because they're like, and again, we'll be able to see this when you go through all the numbers and stuff that I've written. The first episode of most series, Star Wars and Marvel, they pretty much get a lower start and then build. In terms of Loki, like they're doing the minutes watch with the runtime thing. It comes out around 8 or 9 million views for Loki season 2, episode 1. But Disney themselves, after 3 days of Loki season 2, episode 1 being released, said that Loki already had 11 million views within 3 days. Ahsoka had 14 million views in a week. So, that's this first season, and obviously, as you can tell, there it's pretty good numbers,
right?
Averaging around 17 million. And yeah, so with that in mind, like I said, the Loki numbers this week is like 8 or 9 million, but in reality, Disney put out there was 11 million within 3 days.
Right.
So, so again, we are operating off of what just Nielsen tells us, and that's US only. But then in terms of the Loki thing, it's ridiculous because, like I said, as you'll see, we got these things will pick up. Other than the case of Ahsoka, which is odd because it drops from 11 to 9 at one point, whereas the rest of them stay pretty consistent. But yeah, it's
9 million on episode 4, and then by episode 5, we're back up to 11 again.
Right. Yeah.
And
so,
and 2 still hasn't been counted. TBC to be counted, or
confirmed because that's why in the episode 1 it says Diz in the in the brackets. It's just because that's the only one Disney ever gave us numbers for.
Yeah.
And then with the problem with and they didn't reveal the episode 2 numbers, and then the problem with the double episode premiere was those numbers get mixed into one. So, but when you do the math on the Nielsen numbers from the Ahsoka stuff, it's lower than 40 million. It's like a lot lower than 40 million because of course it will be.
Yeah.
Disney are operating off of, and that's the thing. People should be comparing the Loki numbers to the first episode of a show, not like the finale of a show. Because by the end of the Loki season, you can compare that to Ahsoka if you wanted, but like look at there, like Loki starts at 14 million, by the end it reaches 22.
Yeah.
No Star Wars show in the list has reached 22 million.
Yeah, nothing gets snowballed to that, and we could explain it away with COVID or whatever all we want, but it doesn't matter what the reason is. That's what it does, and that's not what the Ahsoka numbers do.
No. So yeah, so I do a little explaining in the paragraph above. I don't know if you want to read that or not.
Yeah, I'll read it. Yeah, based on the minutes watched via Nielsen, I'm sure in the right tab, via Nielsen, and divided by the runtime of the specific episode. So Disney and Netflix determine their views based on minutes watched. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Watched and divided by the full runtime. In Disney's case, this would include recaps and credits. So, as you mentioned, the recaps and the credits is going to change those numbers drastically.
Yeah,
it's adding runtime.
The credits. Yeah, like it inflates it massively.
Yeah.
So, but again, when you turn on Disney Plus and you click skip recap, you look at it, you've already gone a minute or so into the episode. Like it's counted in the runtime for the episode.
Right.
So it needs to be counted.
So Disney shared 14 million views for episode 1 based on the minutes watched divided by the episode runtime. Disney did not share the numbers of episode 2, and as both episodes 1 and 2 released simultaneously, it's unclear how many view episode 2 received. So, which I also think that like it's probably going to be around 80% of that first episode. You got to figure there's probably around a 20% drop off at most, but it probably is. People are like, I don't like this. I'm out, and didn't watch it. But that's once again just an assumption. These numbers do not reflect unique viewers, which are individual households watching the episode one time, which is how TV viewing was traditionally reported, though HBO still do this. Excuse me. But yeah, so basically they're kind of playing on our assumptions that it's being reported like how TV used to be, that it means what it used to mean when we see those numbers, but it doesn't, does it?
No. Like I said, the HBO, again, because I know they have a streaming service in the form of Max and whatever, but they still do report traditional numbers.
Yeah.
You can go back and look at it for The Last of Us, House of the Dragon, any of the big successes they've had over the past year or so. You can find it.
When you have a really big dick, you're not afraid of the ruler, right? That's kind of the fucking lesson here when you get down to it. Is they're like, no, don't you take that out. Don't you take that ruler out. No, don't measure any of this. Just trust us. It's huge. 14 million guys. So in your opinion on episode 1, which they said had 14 million, you think it's closer to what you average here at 11 million in actuality for the first episode?
I don't know. I generally don't. I think that it's probably lower than 14 million, like unique viewers, because again, like it's repeat watches. Like how many times do you personally rewatch an Ahsoka episode?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure like the hardcore Star Wars fans are watching them repeatedly. I'm not saying every day of the week, but they watch them more than once.
Yeah, I watch like when I like a Star Wars show, I probably watch it 3 times.
Yeah, so it gets like included into that. So yeah, I think it's probably lower than the 14. Again, it's the reason they're using views and doing the methods that they are, and not just going off of unique viewership, because chances are the unique viewership, showcases a lower number. This looks better on paper. This looks better for press releases. This looks better in the pop culture zeitgeist. This is what they want you to know. Like, we've said this before. When Disney wants you to know something, they'd let you know. They'd say Black Panther had the most views of any movie on Disney Plus. Hocus Pocus 2 is the most watched movie on Disney Plus. It's the most watched Disney Plus original, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
They'll inform you of it. Sometimes they'll give you numbers alongside it. Sometimes they won't. Like the Ahsoka thing for the Ahsoka thing after a full week had 40 million views according to them. Loki after 3 days, it had 11 million for season 2. I think the reason they didn't give us a full Loki week is because of the Ahsoka stuff. Ahsoka just happened. They're telling you it's 14 million, and and then Loki comes up shortly after and say, well, after 3 days it's 11. So it's a win for both. And Loki had the highest amount of any, I think, show over the course of 3 days. It was something significant. Yeah,
the average you have down for Loki in the Marvel document is 17 million on average.
That's for season 1. Yeah,
for season 1.
About the season 2 premiere, which recently happened.
They
said it was 11 million within like 3 days.
Right.
So if it's 11 million within 3 days, you add another 4 days onto it, chances are it might beat the 14 million that they said that Ahsoka got. But we don't know that. We have no proof of it. All we have is the Nielsen numbers, which is, I think Loki season 2 is coming around 8 or 9 million.
Right.
Again, you look at the Nielsen numbers for episode 1 of Ahsoka, it's lower than what the 14 million is, because obviously this represents worldwide, not just the States.
Yeah.
It's a very annoying way to do all this, and fans are left to try and gauge how successful or unsuccessful a show is by doing their own maths and piecing everything together from multiple shows.
Yeah.
Like I said, I went back for like the shows that don't do that well, you can't find numbers for. So like with Ms. Marvel, for example, I had trouble getting numbers, and the Bad Batch, I couldn't really get any numbers at all.
Yeah.
So, it's difficult. So, but yeah, if you want to go through the Ahsoka numbers and then like, because again, this whole document thing, it'll go into like the average or rank them, it'll do everything else.
Season 1, episode 1, we open with 14 million views. It opens up with episode 2 as well. And once again, we don't have the numbers on 2, but we assume that a lot of the people continued to watch on, but obviously not everybody did. So episode 2 has to be less than episode 1 just by its very nature.
Right. And I think when they were reported through Samba and stuff, they were saying there was a significant drop off from 1 and 2.
Okay.
And again, you can see it up until the point of episode 5 where there's a loss. There's a 3 million loss between episode 1 and 3. You know, there's a 2 million loss between 3 and 4.
Yeah.
At that point, we were talking about this on the show, saying it was closer at that time to Andor numbers, which it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would stand to reason that if episode 3 has 11 million, that episode 2 has above 11 million, because there's some people who watch episode 2 and probably jump ship at that time too.
Right.
So it's probably like 12 million. Episode 2 is probably like 13 to 12 million. Episode 3 is 11 million. Then we take our dip, but then we have the Anakin appearance at episode 5. And I like what you did here, how you went through on the ones and you said when a big name guest or whatever shows up. I always contend that Anakin isn't a cameo, but that is his first real appearance in the season and the show. And he's a cast member,
doesn't he? And then like that's what obviously got everybody up and going for the
and then
episode.
Yeah, it starts to really kind of go down. It goes down to 9 million at 4, but we end with Anakin, that little appearance.
And again, that bump will have new viewers watching, but those new viewers watching, they might have watched episode 1 to 4, like, you know, ready for 5, and that's included within that week's numbers, which gets you to 11 million.
Right.
And it'll be the same for any other show. If they think Luke Skywalker showed up with Mandalorian, they're gonna watch the rest of the stuff to get to that point. Like I said, when a big character appears in a show, there is usually a bump. I remember after the episode 4 numbers, the Nielsen numbers came out. You and I were talking about it on Fortnite as we do, and I was like, I'm pretty sure when he shows up, when Anakin shows up, it's going to get a bump. You know, like it'll happen, and because it's just reflective in all the other stuff, in all the other numbers. Like, you know, if you look at the other stuff I've marked down when other significant characters appear, obviously Andor doesn't have anybody, but if you scroll down to Obi-Wan Kenobi,
it mentioned Masamita, man. Don't take that off the table.
Yeah. If you scroll down to Kenobi, when Vader first appears, again, there's a bump. There's a bump.
Up 3 million from the previous week when Vader shows up.
Yeah, and if you scroll down to Boba Fett, there's a bump once Din shows up. You know, this goes from 10 to 14.
Yeah. People are like, oh, this is the other season of Mandalorian's picking up in this. I better watch it.
Yeah, and it happens.
4 million people.
I've not written in this, but it happens on season 2 of The Mandalorian as well, when Boba Fett shows up, and again when Luke Skywalker shows up. Yeah. So again, you see there in the book of Boba Fett, 16 million when Luke appears.
Yeah.
So it gets another bump on top of it.
Right.
But it's a thing that can happens often, is that there's a rise in the numbers, and usually it doesn't drop back down to the numbers that came before it.
Right.
You know, like it doesn't go back down to as low as it has been. It usually retains some viewership,
and that's because of that snowball effect, usually, right?
Yeah.
So I read a little bit for the people. Yeah. Should I read this right now?
Read that for you.
Okay. In every instance of a character with a large cultural impact appearing in any of the series, it's evident the series receives a large boost in viewership. Ahsoka dropped to 9 million views with its 4th episode, the lowest of the season, but jumped up 2 million views the following week with the Anakin Skywalker heavy episode. The same can be seen with the Book of Boba Fett, which had a series low with its 4th episode, but revived a 4 million bump the following week with the appearance of Din Djarin. Obi-Wan Kenobi also received a significant bump of 3 million once Darth Vader appeared in episode 4. Do you think they have this down to a science, or is this just a weird trend?
I think this is just a weird trend, but I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a science. This has happened now on multiple occasions. It happened in season 2 of The Mandalorian. It happened at Boba Fett, Kenobi, and now Ahsoka. Right. And the only time it didn't happen is Andor. So I don't know if you want to show people the Andor numbers, which is back up to the top, just to show
Andor season 1. So the first 3 episodes is 5 million viewership, and that was from Disney, right? Did Disney confirm that? No. They were just shit.
They were quiet on Andor. Yeah.
Okay. So but 5 million. Then by episode 4, though, we go up to a 10. which is actually like kind of a crazy recovery in a way, isn't it?
I think it's maybe word of mouth after the acclaim of the first three.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
more people decided to tune in.
yeah. That's what I'm thinking too. Which is but then we get our but remember, like the Andor was sort of like 3-part arcs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of moments for people to go, I'm gonna wait a few weeks. There's on that one. There's like, I don't want to get into it again or whatever. Like that's how I am with other shows. Things that aren't Star Wars, I go, I don't know if I want to start something.
But again, so you have the first 3 episodes which gained 5 million in the
5
Nielsen
million
numbers,
first little
and
movie.
then so if then it's a positive word of mouth and there's critical acclaim, people would have tuned in for the 4th episode, but they would have also watched the first 3. So for the 4th week, it counts the people tuning in, rewatching the first 3 or watching the first 3 for the first time, and it goes into the 4th. That's why then when you see the 5th episode, it goes back down to 7. So if people have caught up, it levels off a bit because they're not just rewatching the past episodes in order to catch up.
And you have some people who are going to stay and some people who are going to let a few more drop before they do that again, I'm sure, as well.
And once you go from there, it's pretty consistent for the Andor numbers.
Yeah, we dropped down to 7, but then we see like 8 and 9, and then we end up with an 11 million at the very end, and that makes sense to the snowball effect once again because you have people that are now watching everything that they missed.
Yeah, and then again, like even so, like 5, 6, 7, there's a natural trend. The 7, 8, 8 is retaining viewership. Drops a little bit down on 7, 8 picks back up.
Right.
And again, once you get to the end of something, more people will tune in for the finale. And, like you haven't watched all of Loki yet, the current season.
Right.
And you're planning to tune in. It ends this week, and you're planning to tune in and watch all in one go, which is how a lot of people want to consume their series. So they would likely do it. Some people, not all, especially us, we would definitely watch a Star Wars show week to week and watch it multiple times. But some people will just binge it.
Yeah, for me, when it's a show, when it's like a 6-episode show, I would almost rather just wait and do the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like as a movie, for the most part, like it's not that big of an investment just to sit down and do it that way. But like when you look at Andor, you do see consistency, and so I would say with hindsight, Lucasfilm and Disney Plus could look at the potential of a show like Andor. Its tone, its serious setting, who it's made for, and then they could probably budget that better in the future. That Andor is extraordinarily expensive, right? But people are saying, well, Andor got a season 2, but Andor got the season 2 back. What we always refer to, but the Tony Gilroy quote of
Andor
nobody knew
5 seasons.
was supposed to have 5.
Yeah, then it went to 2. So
Yeah, and that's if you believe their version of the story 100%. I'm not speaking for you, but I think our version of the story is yes. Tony Gilroy was like, this is extraordinarily hard and almost impossible, and there's no way I'm going to be able to do 5 seasons of this like this. That probably did happen, but we also kind of think there's a good chance that they saw what the actual interest in the show was in the big picture. And the idea of it ever justifying the price at that price point for 5 seasons, even 3 seasons, probably became impossible. And they were probably able to get the 2nd season because the machinations of the production were already well underway at that point. And so it was easier to do it than to stop it.
Yeah, we know as well from, I think it's one of the directors of photography, right, who was doing interviews around the time of its release. He said during production we were told it was 3 seasons. So and that was what they were working towards. I think obviously post or even the start of its release, they saw the interest, they saw the numbers on the official numbers on their side, which is probably different to this, and was like, okay, we'll have to do 2. We can't afford to do this. Like, it's not bringing enough for that. It might have critical acclaim. It might be my favorite Star Wars show that they've done. It might be Rob's, it might be yours, but like at the end of the day, if it's not bringing them money and viewership, then what's the endeavor for them? So doing one more season and signing it off, letting Gilroy tell the story he wants to tell in some way, it's power to the creator, to the creative, I should say. And then but it's not fantastic, but like going into Andor season 2, we're now seeing with Marvel that they're airing Echo on both Hulu and Disney Plus in the States, which again, Hulu has a more mature audience than the Disney Plus viewers, and Echo is rated TVMA over there, so it's given it a better chance to succeed by sharing it across their two streaming platforms. I think if Andor season 2 did the same thing, it would obviously get a lot more viewership, and this speaks to a more mature audience than just what you think of as a typical Disney Plus audience.
Yeah, that's what we were having that conversation just this week. We were like, if they were to put Andor onto Hulu, and like the FX audience realized that this is like Star Wars for the FX audience,
right?
That'd be wise. You know, it would,
100%,
and it would be good for. I think it would be even at a little bit of a loss for the brand itself in the sense that the show's expensive. It would also though say, hey, you know what? Star Wars isn't automatically this lowbrow cheese. It doesn't have to be. And I think that's important for the brand to take one on the chin every now and then for something like Andor, you know, and to make sure that the audience who would appreciate it sees it. And that's where like the Hulu merger over time will make sense. But at the same time, I mean, without getting too sidetracked, is that 11 billion they're paying for, or is it 8 billion? I can't remember what it was for.
8 billion.
8 billion for Hulu. Is that crazy in your opinion, or does that make sense?
It's just off of the market share. Like it seems accurate in what they're paying.
Yeah.
You know, I don't to merge all the content and have two streaming platforms at their disposal. I think it does make sense. Like I said, I think eventually they will merge it into like a tab on Disney Plus, but I also think they might do the Warner Brothers thing of they've let Discovery be its own thing. It still remains. I think Disney might still do that with Hulu, but there might be a Hulu tab inside of Disney Plus.
Yeah.
You know,
or both ways even, right? It could go the other way on Hulu. It's going to have the tab, and they it might be buy.
Yeah, because
buy
you know, like there's a tab on, or there's an option on, like so. Like in the UK and the rest of the world, we've had the Hulu content and everything else for years, in our Disney Plus. But there's options to filter it that you don't see it.
Yeah,
you know. So if for the people who only want Disney Plus for their children, then they click off. If they say, "Well, the Bears," and you're like, "That's not for my children," or you know, Atlanta.
Tommy saw a nipple and now he wants blood.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, I think they'll keep.
Today's show is powered by Tom's Computer. Sorry. I used his name, so I had to say it.
Yeah. So I think they'll keep both, but I think long term it could. Again, it's a shame for Andor. It might get more viewers if it's aired both on Hulu and on Disney Plus. And again, it doesn't matter at that point if it's just one or the other because Disney owns both. They're going to count the numbers as both. It does not matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it will happen, but with Andor, I think it's too little, too late in that regard. Because I think if this happened for season 1 and they did it simultaneously, there might have been more viewership, which might have been less do a third as they wanted during the production of the first season. Let's do a third season. Like this, the audience its reach on FX warrants it. You know.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, force it just to remain on Disney Plus, and then just like last year they put it like the first 3 episodes on like Freeform and ABC and Hulu. Like that isn't enough to help sell the show. But yeah, it's too little, too late for that. But I think we'll see how it works for the Marvel shows for Echo. They'll be the first to do it. Maybe they'll attempt it with the Acolyte. I doubt it, but maybe they'll attempt it.
Yeah, I always wanted, like, in terms of just Andor in general too, like things that could happen, you know, without getting on too speculative, but like it stands to reason that if they had all 5 seasons, you would have, you know how there's like people who believe like the government is run by like Satanist baby drinking like cabal of miscreants or something, or like you got like your Rosemary's Baby or you're the Omen. It's all for you, Damien, and then you start to realize, oh shit, like a cult is around me and running everything, you know, kind of thing. Like in that grounded world of Andor, the guy who realizes that the Empire is controlled by Satan, like not in his opinion, in his political opposition, like literally controlled by Satan, You know, that's a fascinating like story right there that I think could have been told with the 5 seasons. Luthen finds out what that guy really is, kind of thing. Like that would be an incredible arc. But I have hope that if they're only doing these like 2 seasons, but then with its reputation, we see like some of those little arcs maybe picked up, like not this one particular, but like Saw Gerrera. Obviously, Saw Gerrera is the thing that probably shouldn't have been included. Now that we're down to 2 seasons, and he's there, and it's a good conversation they have. But you know, I don't think he needed it, especially not when Luthen has that excellent monologue that he gives. I think it kind of takes care of it. You know, you just see the paranoia and that other thing, but. We could see those stories maybe picked up other places, especially if the Hulu thing should be successful for Marvel. And I think that like the Marvel audience is way open to like as a kid growing up anyways. Like I always felt like DC was really the colorful one and Marvel was the one that got like a little bit more grit to it. Not in the way it went in the big picture, you know, like in the 90s. It got a lot more gritty than other comic outlets, but at the time. And so I still think that they could take Marvel a lot further than what they do.
You see a lot of the Marvel audience, like because of the Netflix series, because of Daredevil and Punisher and Jessica Jones and wherever else they hid over there.
Yeah.
Because of how much all those series were, they wanted that to come over when they were going to reintroduce Charlie Cox's Daredevil and the rest of those characters. So with Echo, which is obviously so closely tied, and you know Kingpin is really prominent throughout that trailer. The Marvel audience are definitely open to that. They want that. They came off of the Netflix Daredevil. It's the same actor. They want a bit of a similarity in terms of the physicality, the violence, and the bit of the darkness that comes with Daredevil, and you know, coming from that Netflix show. So yeah, especially when you bring other characters as well, like the Punisher, supposedly in the Daredevil series, and you know his series was pretty dark as well.
Yeah. When I went to D23, I remember like talking to you after, and I'm just like that show, the Echo series, it looks like absolute shit. And then the trailer I just saw this week looked like one of the best things that they maybe have done in forever. And I'm like, that show is not the same show that they showed us at D23. I crapped on that, but that trailer for that new Echo thing, I want to watch that. It's night and day. And they did show some of the Daredevil stuff in it. I don't really remember it that well, but it was sort of in between, I'd say. It felt much like, you know, Winter Soldier kind of Daredevil. Like where if Daredevil had been a Winter Soldier in that sequence that they showed of them like breaking into a warehouse or something. But yeah, so I mean they do apparently have the ability to steer the ship a different direction when need be. Shogun Orta gave a $2 super chat and says, "What does Star Wars have an equivalent to Satan?" I think Palpatine is the devil, right? I mean, Palpatine has the central core theme of Star Wars is that anybody could be redeemed, even Darth Vader. Yet Palpatine, there's never been one thing that makes Palpatine redeemable. So I would say if there was a great white Satan in Star Wars, it's probably Palpatine. Or Rose Tico, depending on your point of view, but you'd be crazy. I'm joking. That's a joke.
So after episode 5, you see it pertains as 11 million.
11 million, yeah.
6th week. And then episode
and that's to be fair, is still like the core of the show. So we do hit our average viewership about in the middle of the episode 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So we do, and it is bumped by the Anakin. It does get a little bit of a bump, but we do hit our average there.
I do wonder if Anakin didn't appear in this series, where it would have ended up. Because they were losing, let's just say, 2 million a week in views. I do wonder where it would have ended up. I think it probably would have been much closer to where Andor was. But the Anakin thing did give it a bump. It did. Because again, once the Anakin stuff happened as well, you did see Disney really pushing the marketing. You've seen it all over, like, say, TikTok and YouTube with Anakin spots. Like, they take stuff from that episode and it was heavily featured then in promotional material to let people know that this is a recognizable character. You might want to tune in. So,
Royal Fino said the Great White Satan thing. He said the Senate. It's the same thing. I am the Senate. I get it, Royal. I'm going to give you a little clap. We'll give you a little clap on that one, Royal. Anyways, Yeah, when it comes to the average of 11 million and the average of 8 million on Andor, how do you think those shows compare? How do you think that like is that really bad for Andor and this is really good for Ahsoka, or is this, like it's kind of weird because like when you mentioned that 5 million bump, I go like, yeah, Anakin's the big appearance. And I would also say for children like my son, the lightsaber is just as important as Anakin showing up. Like, and that's in that one is when the lightsaber duels really get heated. It's like when it's really there. And I think one of the problems with the show is it takes 5 episodes until my kid, anyways, is like he believes the promise of the lightsabers. Before that, you get a couple of lightsaber fights, but they're kind of stylized and whatever. But that 5th episode, that's when I think he's solidified. And so you do have you have 2 things going for you, lightsabers and Anakin. That's a big thing because remember, like on that episode, Anakin didn't have to put out a lightsaber in the episode. There was nothing before we knew about the show that ever made us think he wasn't just going to be a smiling gimp of a ghost going, hey, I see you. I watch things from afar now that I'm dead. That was the assumption that you would have made. You would never have made the assumption Anakin Skywalker is going to duel Ahsoka throughout the episode. You know what I mean? Like that's you can't really just guess that and fake it.
Yeah.
And
I do think that without the Anakin appearance, this probably would have stayed at around 9, but maybe it would have dwindled. Maybe it would continue the trend of dropping viewers. But by the end, as we see with most of them, they do peak again towards the end because again, people would binge watch the show. So I think the average would be much lower than 11. I think Anakin. I don't want to say he saved the show because I think that's a bit like extreme, but I think
I have something to say about that.
Yeah, I think he pulled a lot of eyes and garnered a lot of interest in the appearance, and people were then willing to give the show a shot. And again,
go ahead.
The way that Ahsoka ends the first season, there is a possibility to have Anakin in the second season and also include him a lot more in the marketing. You said before the show even came out, before we even saw a trailer officially, was put Anakin or Vader in the marketing. Just even a quick shot of them. Because
dude, if this show had Darth Vader and Ahsoka, or even Anakin Skywalker and her just clashing lightsabers on the posters, and you just were like, what the fuck is going on? That intriguing thing would have done so much better for it than just showing Ahsoka Tano looking pissed off, But the thing about it, or the place I want to stick up for Ahsoka on compared to other shows like The Mandalorian season 2, the big cameo in episode 5 here is it's linked to the theme of the series, which is a master and apprentice, the teacher failing the student, and therefore the student failing the teacher, and who's responsible and being afraid of that. That's kind of like the central core of the narrative here. And we see it even reflected down to Shin and Balin. It goes across the whole thing. And so when they do bring Anakin in this one, it's not cheap. It's not a Band-Aid. It's not just like here we go, in case of glass, in case of emergency, break Anakin glass, and he comes out. Like how Luke Skywalker did not need to show up in Mandalorian season 2. Great ending, but you literally could have done that ending with almost anybody in a different way and not have brought back a computer Luke. You didn't have to do it that way. In this particular one, there is absolutely nobody else who could show up except for Anakin Skywalker. So that's the one thing that I want to give Ahsoka credit for in terms of I don't know, series integrity, maybe, on its choices.
Well, you said earlier, do you think this is a trend? Do you think they're doing it as a science, or do you think it's just natural? I think all of the appearances just had the bump have all been natural appearances. They all make sense. And I don't think there was, so we're seeing it as a trend, with the bumps on. They might see that and then make it a science, as you said it. They might, you said none of it feels like cheap, and it all feels integral, and it all feels thoughtful. In Ahsoka and Obi-Wan in Boba Fett or whatever, it all feels natural to the story.
Yeah.
But we could get to a point where it isn't, where they're like, okay, you're on mid-season, we need a bump, so we're going to start putting in a cameo.
Chewbacca! Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and again, we probably wouldn't see it until like later shows. Like we probably wouldn't see that for Skeleton Crew or the Acolyte or anything.
Right.
You know, where they're like, okay, 5th episode, like let's break out Yoda. Like Yoda's in the Acolyte
Yeah.
now. And
Right.
and the same thing with Skeleton Crew. Okay, here's Mando. Mando's in the 5th episode. Like they would likely see this trend from Ahsoka.
Yeah,
It's
because
happened on multiple occasions.
yeah, to be fair to them, they didn't have these numbers until they did these shows. It's not until they've done 5 Star Wars shows that they start to go like, oh, we know how this actually turns out. You know,
And
all the time. Everything's an assumption.
And the one that doesn't have a larger like cultural character up here is Andor, and it doesn't get the bump.
Yeah.
Whereas all the other shows have one, and it has a significant bump in each show.
Because we have a real problem with Star Wars fans in terms of their analysis and content creators between subjective and objective data. Objective data is hard numbers. Here's what it is. There's nothing, but then like the subjective data is, I think because, I feel because, and they really don't separate those differences, and that's why the grift is so hard.
Obi-Wan Kenobi was a failure because I didn't like it.
Yes.
There's no way Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of the most watched Star Wars shows because I didn't like it.
And there's, it's like, I mean, the average for Kenobi season 1 is 16 million views. And if you want to go Star Wars theory, who was mad about like the budget compared to some other series, the show cost less and made more. How is that a failure for them? Now, no, don't, once again, to be super clear for the slower kids in the class, I completely understand that Kenobi looks like shit sometimes, but that's not their perspective. That's not, I mean, obviously I think the creatives want the highest quality art at the price point. However, the executives are looking at Kenobi made 16 million average views and cost a hell of a lot less than everything else. We are lucky that Kenobi didn't set a trend of everything costing a hell of a lot less.
Well, look at Andor. Andor cost $250 million, right? Was it?
Yeah.
And it has an average of 8 million, and Kenobi doubles that.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of bang for your buck, I mean, maybe there's even an argument to be made that Kenobi cost a hell of a lot less because Andor costs so much. I mean, when you get down to it, Disney is going to allocate a budget to Lucasfilm for their operating cost. And Lucasfilm might have said, you know what? Andor is really our future and Kenobi's our past.
And we are going into a place where Disney are being very budget and spending conscious.
True.
And Tony Gilroy said at the time that with Andor, streamers and companies were just throwing money to bolster their streaming services and to get more people to sign up. So he was in a very fortunate time when he got budgeted Andor.
Yeah.
You know, we're now going into a time where this is likely going to be a lower budget for most shows and most films. You know, I don't think we're going to see the $300 million budget which Indiana Jones had on most Disney films going forward, outside of maybe Avengers, which may require it.
And we shouldn't. And with Star Wars, usually we shouldn't see that.
No, we shouldn't. And you know,
remember the prequel films that it's put up on a pedestal lately. I love them, but they've been put on a pedestal with this current like generation growing up of prequel kids. Those movies were probably cheaper than season 1 of Kenobi with inflation. You know, just to put it into context. I think they cost about $120 to $130 million to make the prequels each back in the day.
Yeah. So if you want to look at some of the other numbers from the Star Wars series, like I said, you just went out to Kenobi and.
Well, one thing I wanted to point out that you did here is season 1 of Ahsoka has 11 million average. Ahsoka is an original Star Wars character with about, I don't know, maybe less than 15 years of development. She came about 2008. And then we have compare that to Obi-Wan Kenobi with 6 million views. So we have about 16. We have about a 5 million difference on Ahsoka, but then look at Book of Boba Fett with an average of 12 million views. So Boba Fett himself has 12 million views and Ahsoka has 11 million views. I would say that's actually a rather significant win for Ahsoka Tano, whose character is very popular in the like Twitter sphere, if you will, but not necessarily in reality. Like
Which is very
she's
popular in the Star Wars circles.
in the
She's very
Star Wars
popular.
circles.
You go to the conventions. You see a ton of Ahsokas. There's a ton of appreciation for her online and on Star Wars social media, but the larger general audience did not know Anakin Skywalker had a Padawan. They did not know. They didn't tune into the Clone Wars. They didn't watch Rebels. You know, and again, like that's why bringing Anakin in, for instance, does boost that, because it informs those people like, hey, I know this person. Let's give this a watch, and then their world opens up to Ahsoka. So yeah, to have it compared to the Book of Boba Fett, which had 12 million, only a million behind, it is significant, especially when you see the bumps that Boba Fett had as well.
Yes.
You know, if you go and look at the bumps he had when Din appears and when Luke appears.
Like you said, you wrote, The Mandalorian is included in this list as I couldn't find numbers for its first season and views per week. It doesn't just represent the episode released that week, but any episode being watched. So with a longer running series, a multi-season series, it'll skew the numbers. Below is the ranking of the most popular Star Wars shows based on views. And number 1 is Obi-Wan Kenobi with 16 million views. The Book of Boba Fett with 12 million views, Ahsoka with 11 million views, and Andor with 8 million views. So when you get down to it, we kind of hit the ceiling. And even if we have the Mando numbers, it would be weird because Mando came out when the series was brand new. When the platform was brand new. So it was growing. So it's like all those numbers are just super strange, and it is a hard one to contend with. And it's a huge hit. So it's just super strange. So I think by removing Mandalorian from it, we're looking at like your average Star Wars series too, not the first and not the phenomenal Baby Yoda one. Just like what Star Wars is actually doing when it's just operating without some weird trend like sweeping the internet off its feet. And we have Obi-Wan Kenobi with 16 million, Book of Boba Fett with 12, Ahsoka with 11, and Andor with 8. So we have an 8 million difference between Andor and Kenobi. That's basically Kenobi is twice as strong as the worst show.
Right.
And so, but that gives us a spectrum in which to sort of gauge future Star Wars shows for the time being, unless Disney Plus grows immensely or dies, whichever. We'd have this like 8 million differential to like be like, well, we don't even really know how they view Andor either, for the record. Like they might say, yeah, Andor was at that price point was still worth the 8 million views on the platform. I don't know if they would, but they could, but I doubt it.
Yeah, and again, like going forward as well, I think it's going to be very interesting with something like Skeleton Crew and Acolyte, where they land, because again, it's operating that little Dave Filoni Mandoverse with Skeleton Crew, so it'd be interesting to see if I don't think it'll perform as well as Ahsoka did.
Yeah.
You would assume they're hoping for it to perform better than Andor. So it'll be interesting to see what that lands. And then the Acolyte has a bunch of lightsabers and a bunch of Jedi, and that's obviously, like, again, when I was in the room when they showed that trailer, there was people who had people who I stood with who had no interest in the Acolyte necessarily, but upon seeing the trailer, they were all about it. Like,
right.
So once that, once promo and TV spots and trailer start hitting, it could interest an audience. Like you said, like your son got interested in Ahsoka when the lightsaber fight started really happening.
Yeah.
Again, we've seen it before. A lot of people associate Star Wars just with lightsabers. They don't want to see the lightsabers and the Jedi and the Sith and that stuff, right? They don't want to see, just a Han Solo movie. There's no lightsabers. They don't want to see an Andor. There's no,
right,
lightsabers. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Skeleton Crew performs and Acolyte next year, because they're lesser known quantities. Ahsoka does have a built-in hardcore Star Wars fan base. Obviously, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Boba Fett are known far more to the wider pop culture and general audience. And Andor was a supporting character in a spin-off movie.
Yeah. And but also with that, we could predict how this is going to go in the future, in terms of internet discourse. Like if Acolyte and Skeleton Crew should both be two jumping off points to long-lasting and fruitful Star Wars shows with multiple seasons. It could happen. It's completely possible. It's in the cards as a potential possibility. However, with what we're looking at with the trends here, it's not going to start at the top. Definitely not. So there's going to be 2 shows that will allow the culture warriors, that is, to go and then to say Star Wars is dead and here's the proof, because Skeleton Crew opens up to 9 million views. Something like that. Whatever it happens.
Lucky to open up to 9 million. I think if it gets an average 9 million, like, to me, that'd be considered a success.
Oh yeah,
but it is as well. We gotta remember, it's also the most expensive Southern California production.
Yeah, it's not cheap to not make your show not look like it's being shot in Southern California. That's I think the big takeaway there.
As evidenced by Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan Kenobi both suffer for it, and that's the other thing that you could also take from this too, is but you can't quantify it, so it's more of a fun thought exercise. Did Obi-Wan Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett having great numbers, but then cutting corners in terms of look and feel and being really, I mean, once again, these are all TV shows and they look and feel like them because it's what they are. They're not films. It makes me mad when they don't look like the films. I want them to all be like the films, but they're not, because they're not the films. They're TV shows.
Unless you're Andor, that gets 250 million for a season.
And then Andor's the weird one that feels like a movie and it's the least successful one. But did Ahsoka in Andor suffer because of the cuts made to Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett, which I think probably to some extent they do, but we also can't quantify it, so it's not something I'm going to get hung up on. You know what I mean? If that makes sense, because there's always like this take of, I feel this way, therefore I'm going to go and find the evidence that promotes the way I feel. But that's called thesis-driven research, and it's not the way you do research at all. You didn't do that. You did a good job at this, by the way.
I don't like Boba Fett is my least favorite show, and it's arguably the second most successful. Out of that list. So
yeah, it's the second most successful, and I would say the worst on the list as well. For me, Book of Boba Fett is a bigger failure than Kenobi. I connect with the core of Kenobi, even though it has offenses that are like offend my sensibilities and preferences. I still feel like the core of the Kenobi series, if we all sat down, if the world collapsed and we were all at a bonfire, and I'm one of the elders who remembers the good old days of when Disney Plus existed. What was that movie with Batman where he's like fighting dragons and shit, and he tells about Empire Strikes Back? That's the scene I'm thinking. Yeah, so we're doing that. If I tell you guys the Book of Boba Fett story, you'd be like, okay. I tell you the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and be like, that's a better series. That was the better one. In reality, whatever. But yeah, and then below right here is the ranking, including one season long series of Star Wars live action series and Marvel Studios live action series. So right here you do Loki season 1 had 17 million.
This is average. Yeah.
This is the average. So again, and that's what they're going to care about. They're not going to care about unless something had a phenomenal one episode that was insanely high, like 20 million higher than the rest. That doesn't happen though. That doesn't happen with these shows. They're all serialized entertainment. It's not possible. So you got Loki at season 1 at 17 million views, and then Kenobi. I'm glad we got Star Wars as a second place. Considering, and that's 16 million for Obi-Wan Kenobi. And to be fair, just to throw it out there too, if we did have Mando numbers on average for its the true numbers, it may be the biggest show on here. It's hard to say. We don't really know. But Star Wars usually doesn't come close to beating Marvel on things. So the Marvel audience is huge in comparison.
I did try season 2 and season 3 numbers of The Mandalorian. But again, because especially season 3, they're kind of 3 seasons worth of shows.
Right.
That's all included in that week's watch.
Okay.
So it's very hard to say. That's why I picked 1 season long shows.
Yeah.
It's because you can see what they did week on week.
Okay.
But again, it is hard to like I said. By the time that Loki has a full second season, it'll be harder to ever include Loki. That's why we're only including the first season. So,
yeah. Like WandaVision, I think maybe the best thing that Disney Plus ever made is third place with 15 million. because I think that was just an original piece of entertainment that was strange, and I appreciated it. And then for me, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I couldn't watch. I watched a couple episodes and I wasn't interested in it. I didn't ever finish it. But it's 13.3 million. It left a bad taste in my mouth, but that has nothing to do with reality. Once again, it doesn't matter what I prefer.
This is what people are going to hate, the fifth one. People are going to hate the fifth one.
Well, yeah, the fifth one, She-Hulk, they all made a big stink about it and said that everything was dead and it was over. And you were the one who told me that it was it their most successful show of the year?
Of
Is that correct?
Year.
Of last year? Yeah. Of the year that it premiered. Yeah, so that's crazy. And look, I mean, that She-Hulk show beat the Boba Fett show. But you know, and you could use that to go, because the Boba Fett was so misguided and awful and bad. But, you know, these numbers aren't
Boba
that
Fett also had
different.
Luke Skywalker show up and Din Djarin. Grogu, so.
And She-Hulk had that Canadian actor who's real cute. That goes a long way.
Daredevil in one episode.
That goes a long way, I guess. Yeah. Then Moon Knight, which I didn't finish. I enjoyed Moon Knight, but I didn't finish it. I don't know why. I just couldn't do it. I was just like, I don't want to watch it now. I enjoyed it though when I was watching it. It's a weird thing. I just felt like I was watching a movie in segments, and I lost interest.
One thing that's interesting with Moon Knight is it's very close to the Boba Fett numbers, and it has an episode less.
Yeah. True.
So many episodes. Boba Fett has 7 episodes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't the full 8.
Yeah. So then, Moon Knight has 6. But
and
again,
then
it's very close. It's 12.5 on Moon Knight, 12.57 on Boba Fett.
What did Hawkeye have?
12.4.
No. How many episode numbers did it have?
6.
6. So Hawkeye has less and does 12.4 million versus Ahsoka's 8 episodes at 11 million. So. Yeah, and then Secret Invasion had 9 million, which is that good for Secret Invasion? I don't even know. That one was expensive, huh? That was the thing about Secret Invasion. It cost a lot, right?
It was like $220 million. It was like Andor money almost.
Andor money.
Yeah, number 11 was supposed to be Andor, by the way, and I just forgot to include it. Number 11 was supposed to be Andor, that is Miss Marvel at 12, but because Andor has 8 million on average, and then Miss Marvel has the lowest of 6.
Okay.
Which is very bad. And
that is
some weeks you could not get data because it didn't enter any sort of streaming chart.
They were just like, let's not talk about it.
Well, it wasn't even just like let's not talk about it. It was just like, well, Nielsen didn't feel the need to provide any numbers because they didn't make it into any charts.
So nobody cares, so we don't.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay.
And again, Ms. Marvel, I didn't mind that series. I think it should have been a film. Same thing for She-Hulk, but that movie, The Marvels, is opening this week. And Ms. Marvel is a massive part of that movie. But as you can tell from the numbers, the least interesting show they've had in terms of like people wanting to watch it across the board, across Marvel and Star Wars.
Right.
That one did not connect to an audience. I don't know why, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It did feel like it skewed a little bit younger, but they didn't seemingly find the younger audience,
As the truth says, if Ahsoka popped up in Jedi Survivor, there would have been a lot of people go, "Who is this?" And I would say if she had, the Ahsoka numbers would likely be a little bit higher because that audience is rather large who plays the Jedi Survivor games. So it would actually be a better advertisement for the show than the game if you wanted to promote something,
Yeah.
And then you wrote the total numbers of watch time in millions of hours ranked. The Mandalorian season 3 and season 2 include watch times for past seasons. So, for example, The Mandalorian season 3 includes both seasons 1 and 2. With that in mind, what is evident is that the rewatches of past seasons of pure viewership of season 3 is down when compared to season 2 by over 40 million hours, likely signaling a downturn. So, Mandalorian season 2, 181 million. Season 3, 139 million. Season 1, 90 million. Book of Boba Fett, 83 million. That was generous of you to let Book of Boba Fett be included in that.
Oh, no, there's more beneath it as well.
Oh, okay. Obi-Wan Kenobi, 71 million. Andor, 70 million. And Ahsoka, 67 million. And I would say that the Ahsoka one, I'm curious as to how much the Ahsoka one will grow post-release at this point, if at all. Do these shows die, or do they continue to be watched? I don't know.
Yeah, this is roughly around the time of, like I said, for season 3 of that, Like it includes, you know, the rewatches of season 2 and season 1 for around that time,
Yeah.
right? And it's clear that the interest in at least rewatching and then pure viewership is definitely down on season 3. Like it's
Right.
40 million hours less than season 2, and it
But
includes 3 seasons at that point.
And
You know?
I want to, I don't want to hang up on it, but we do see a bit of a significant difference in pandemic released content versus post and pre-pandemic released content as well.
I also think that post and pre-pandemic release content,
Yeah.
so
It's a weird one,
especially from specifically from Marvel, is the quality is massively down. Most
Mhm.
people would argue that Loki, WandaVision, and Falcon are
Yeah.
probably the best shows that they've produced, and they're
Mhm.
the highest 3.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, in post-pandemic, there was obviously a lot of discourse around She-Hulk, you know, and then I said Miss Marvel, nobody's really tuned in for. Secret Invasion, like, was really not good, and you know, there's a lot of complaints, especially in regards to the finale.
Yeah.
So I think post-pandemic, especially on Marvel side, and you see it obviously in terms of the box office as well, the quality of the shows, whether in terms of writing and production, has massively downturned.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's also that to consider. The same thing with Star Wars is, you could argue, even though Obi-Wan Kenobi is the most popular one, coming off of that, you had Ahsoka that people don't really know that well, and you know, an Andor people don't really know that well. So
Yeah.
it's different to compare it to, again, Star Wars fans know all of these characters. We are not the example, but a
Yeah.
wider audience. But it's harder to see in Star Wars, but it's very easy to see in Marvel that the quality of the productions and the shows are definitely reflected in its viewership. You know,
Right.
and again, when you know the earlier seasons of the show, so like WandaVision was the first Marvel show they produced, there was less subscribers on Disney Plus at that point, but
Yeah.
it was getting more viewership, and you know, same thing for Loki and Falcon. So, you know, but again, I
Yeah.
think,
Right.
So if you want to go through the Marvel numbers, if you want,
Yeah. Episode 1 and 2, WandaVision 7 million was
and
like
this
the
is
opening. Mhm.
and it ends at 20 million,
Yeah.
and
Averages out to 15 million, which is very nice.
yeah, and then if you continue to go down, it's a trend that happens with most of the Marvel shows.
Yeah.
Falcon Winter Soldier opens at 10, ends at 16,
Right.
13. Loki opens at 14, ends at 22. You know, and this is what I mean by when people were discussing, oh, Ahsoka beat Loki. Yeah, Ahsoka episode 8 has 8 episodes. It's going to beat the Loki season's first episode because, as you see in all of these things, they all start off lower. Every one of these is lower by the time it ends.
Yeah.
You know, like that one.
Even Ms. Marvel kind of does it though. It starts at 5
Yeah.
and it closes at 6.3. But that is clearly the one that did tread water when you really get down to it. It was just more or less. And then She-Hulk episode 1, 11, and then ends up at 16. Ends at average of 13 million. Secret Invasion, 8 million. For the record, I don't really care about most of this stuff. So yeah, I don't have a dog in the fight. It just the numbers are the numbers. But
it's interesting to see, like, when you compare the Marvel and Star Wars shows, the drop off on viewership on either end of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, like people of the past week have tried to make this Loki versus Ahsoka argument, which I genuinely think is irrelevant. I think, you know, you're better off looking at Loki when it's done if you want to compare it. But even then, it's like weird data because then you're probably getting 2 seasons of Loki.
Yeah.
So, but we do know from Disney, like Disney themselves, that Loki season 2, the first episode, gone at 11 million within the first 3 days. Like,
Right.
people are operating off of Nielsen numbers just based off of in the US, which is like, it's between 8 and 9 million.
Right.
And again, we're taking Disney's word for Ahsoka's first episode of it did 14 million in this first week. We're taking their word on that.
Mhm.
So we then should take Disney's word on Loki, which is it did 11 million in 3 days.
Right.
So what does that really mean? Like, what does Loki
I mean,
actually do by the time it gets to a full week?
I could tell you if Rob would stop playing Fortnite and just come and tell us. But Rob, over the weekend, Rob got you and I played Fortnite with Tom and his son, and then we were able to play Fortnite with Rob, and we played 3 rounds.
By the way, Tom's son is a beast.
Tom's son is. I mean, honestly, I think he should be on a watch list because he's ready. He's ready to go to war. We played a game, and when you and I have a good game, we kill about 12 people. I'd say in Fortnite, we've got about 12 kills. Probably is.
Oh no, our highest we've got.
No, not our highest. I'm saying like our average good game.
Oh yeah, 12, 15 around that. Yeah.
We've done higher than that. However. This kid comes on, and we had like kills in the 30s, and I wasn't even seeing people because by the time I saw somebody, he already took them out.
Yeah, this kid had I think we had 30 something kills as a team, and so he did most of it. He had 20 something.
Yeah,
but I was next in line. I had 7, and I was I thought I did pretty well, but this kid had
this. Yeah,
at least 23.
And then we get on with Rob, and we got 3 wins in a row with Rob.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Rob is also a beast because
Rob is a Fortnite
wins
beast
in a row. Yeah, and we didn't get that post Rob.
Rob has 100% win rate on Fortnite right now. Since we're talking chopping numbers, I mean, here we go. That's what it is.
We didn't get that sort of win without Rob before he joined us, and we didn't get it when he left us. So he's the key to our success, I believe. Because that's the thing, Tom's son, he's a little beast, right? He's out there murdering everybody. We didn't win with him. We won with Rob. True.
He had a real Anakin moment where he was really working for himself and not able to keep up with his slowest teammate. Whereas Rob's a real team player, wins across the board.
Give Rob a grenade launcher and he goes to work.
just dismantled those.
You know the difference. I'm sure I didn't see Tom play, but I'm certain what the difference is one guy's out there killing people and the other one's like, hey, there's a guy to your left. And Bespin's like, really? And then he kills him. Yeah, hey, there's a guy coming down from your right. They don't understand basic, just tell your teammate they might be murdered, versus getting all the kills, right, for yourself. Probably a little bit of a difference. My question with all these numbers, though, right? At the end of the day, 10 million, 8 million, 17. What were they expecting internally? If they're hey, we greenlit this budget for $150 million, expecting 20 million views, and we did 15, that's something. If we said, hey, we budgeted Miss Marvel at 90 million and we expected somewhere around 8 to 10 and we got 6, that's something other too. You know what I mean? Or it just, we don't know what their expectations are internally, because at the end of the day, we can sit here and say, well, this show had a character everyone knew about or didn't have a character. No one knows any of the characters in House of Dragons. It's just Game of Thrones. And I feel Star Wars can fall under that same umbrella if it's just compelling TV. But if you have a limited number of subscribers and look, man, I was watching a video on the history, the history Super Mario Land, Super Mario World, right? On the 3DS and the Wii U back 10 years ago, right? Super Mario Land, 3D Super Mario Land being probably my favorite Mario game ever. But there's only so many copies you can sell when your user base is so much. So you could say, hey, they sold 5 million copies of 3D Mario World on Wii U, but they only did a minute amount of audience.
To go back to your earlier part, well, number one is they've never said what they expect. Nobody knows. That's how Gilroy got $250 million to make Andor season 1. They don't know what they're doing. They're making it up as they go. And then the other thing is the difference between Star Wars and a Game of Thrones is that Game of Thrones is very streamlined. It's on rails. You really can't fuck up and go watch the wrong thing. There's not 2 things with Game of Thrones going on at the same time. There's no Coke or Pepsi for Game of Thrones. There's only
if it's not interesting, people aren't going to watch it.
Okay, but the point still stands. If you're following Game of Thrones and you missed the current episode, you've now missed out on something on Game of Thrones. With Star Wars and Marvel, you can literally decide, I'm just not going to watch this anymore. I'm going to watch this other thing, and it's fine. And also, though, too, the big difference is, and they're also on completely different platforms that do completely different things.
HBO Max is pretty similar to the combined might of Disney Plus and Hulu and all that stuff. Like it's not, so those aren't super numbers. HBO.
No, actually,
HBO
Rob, I would say that I pay for Disney Plus mostly so that way my kids can watch stupid shit on it. Whereas I paid for HBO for the last like 10, 15 years as an adult because I want to see like golden age of television, good stuff like since Deadwood.
Well, that speaks to the quality of these stories, that they're not the same rate of golden age of TV.
But it's a different restaurant, and to pretend like it's serving the same dish is usually wrong.
But internally,
like in the Star Wars,
know that what
right?
restaurant they are.
But what happened when Disney Plus tried to serve up a dish similar to HBO? It didn't make the top 11. The quality has nothing to do with anything. That's why Andor's 8 million views. Once they did something worthy of HBO, they were actually punished for it. We're just talking the numbers about what it means. So it's like, and then you look at the numbers and look at Kenobi, which you despise the quality of, is double that of Andor.
Well, I despise the quality of the prequels and Return of the Jedi. It doesn't really mean anything. Like
but I'm with you in terms of like Andor's quality and Kenobi are two different things. So it's like, well, what do they expect? Well, I don't know what they expect, but I know what they value, and they value money. And those numbers that are closer to, are a reflection of money. Therefore, like Kenobi does set the wrong precedent, doesn't it? Like it does tell them the wrong thing if they were listening.
If they're just
I don't think there's
the numbers, yeah,
but
it's in the wrong thing.
I also think that these people don't know what they're doing. I think it's all still like everybody's pretending that they know what they're doing, and I still think nobody really does. The only difference now is they know what they won't pay for. They know they won't pay $250 for an Andor 3. They know that.
I also like going back to Rob. You mentioned the HBO. HBO, like not as the streaming service and as Max, but as the TV network, they still report numbers as unique viewership, and it's still linear TV essentially. And you can see again with those two series, the biggest ones of the past year, which was House of the Dragon and The Last of Us. Both shows almost felt like a big cultural moment, maybe, like in terms of when they released. Because if you look at both shows, they both gain a lot of viewers as the series progresses, and as more people say, "Hey, this Game of Thrones is actually good. It's not like season 8," and more people come on board.
It came on. Both of those shows came on like regular cable live as well, whereas Star Wars doesn't do that.
Right, and that's the numbers that HBO report or whatever. But and that's the thing. But those felt like big cultural moments to a general audience. Andor didn't.
Well, look, they could still do those numbers though, and they're on cable, and they're making money off Max. Then Disney needs to rethink their Disney Plus exclusivity. This just points holes in their business theory that shoving something exclusive on a thing will force everyone to buy it. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
that's the bigger story to me. Like
I agree.
They need to get back. It's like what someone said the other day. They just figured out studios just figured out putting having an ad model helps bring in more money. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. You know, like wait till they figure out physical sales will help sell extra things too. Like just wait. So like I don't. This is the bigger thing. Like it's not that they are making too much stuff. There aren't 5 Game of Thrones series plus movies every year. Like you wouldn't get those numbers if there were. So there's too much Marvel, and I would say, maybe there's, I don't know if it's too much Star Wars, but there's definitely no movies, so that's a whole nother issue. It's
here's the one thing though, like for the Game of Thrones like comparison. Game of Thrones does right now, anyways, one Game of Thrones stuff, but that network exists for the rest of the year, not making Game of Thrones. So when we say Game of Thrones, we're only looking at HBO's fucking runaway hit. We're not looking at like the fucking series with The Weeknd, and then and putting that into the equation here, which is what we would need to do if we were to go like look at what the platforms are doing and how they're doing it differently and where it's failing. It becomes a whole different like beast at that point. Even though I do get like why we would bring up Game of Thrones, considering they're just mining Game of Thrones actors and talent all the time for Star Wars, and it's the fan base is shared and stuff.
Jason.
But the platforms themselves, I just find to be completely different animals.
We have also it's a slightly different take on this from my viewpoint, is that we don't have a fan base telling everyone Game of Thrones is for kids. It's for kids all the time. It's for kids. And that's what they tell you about Star Wars. And when you get something that isn't for kids, they go, well, it's for kids. Can't watch it. It's for kids. And then when you do have something that's for everybody, I'm not going to watch it for kids.
Right.
Like, you've got to stop with telling your thing that's for kids. I know where that argument came from, but you don't want to play. I don't think Star Wars should be placed in the same category as Teletubbies. You know, I think it's this grossly irresponsible, not true. But that's what they do. Can
George Lucas still R-word our childhoods?
Not at the Playboy Mansion. No.
Right.
I mean, if George Lucas can ditch a date with Carrie Fisher to go to the Playboy Mansion, Star Wars ain't for kids. Like,
do you think as well? Do you think because Star Wars is such a, you said it's a lot of people think it's aimed towards children and or teenagers, and it's obviously a sci-fi series. It's looked at more as a quote nerd show, right? Whereas you got all these people who are watching House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones and The Last of Us, they think it's probably speaks more to them, more to adults. And, you know, even though they'll go and discuss Game of Thrones for a week long, they don't see it as like, oh, I'm like, it's just over here, for example, Peaky Blinders is massive.
Yeah.
And I've seen all parties. They have Peaky Blinders parties, and like, I'm like, mate, you're cosplaying. They call me a nerd because I like Star Wars or something, but they're dressed as a Peaky Blinder, like going to a Peaky Blinders party. And
Stephen Knight's like sending you fake spoilers right now, like, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. I think like there's a snobbery to these more adult leaning shows when they look down upon something like Star Wars. They see it as a lesser, like a certain audience does anyway.
Yeah.
You know, like they wouldn't give Andor a shot just because it carries the Star Wars title and there's like aliens in it. But if you remove the Star Wars skin from Andor, it's still a fantastic like spy thriller series.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like we said, Andor was like a HBO level series in terms of its quality.
Andor could have been a Blade. If we just took the scripts and said it's Blade Runner now, you could have done that and set it in the Blade Runner universe, and it would have been a great cyberpunk story. It's a great
1138 is what
I
said.
You could. But once again, on the platform that it's released on, and that's where I do think that they do need to monopolize on that Hulu acquisition or merger, whatever they're going to call it in the end.
Yeah, well,
and that is where and Andor should be on Hulu now.
In a just world, they would have been paired with Netflix a long time ago, but that's never happening now. You know,
like
the audience for this really is on Netflix because it's. And when I say Stranger Things, you know, you can go and I'm rewatching the whole thing.
Oh, by the way, you could buy 11 on Fortnite if you want to get her. You should probably get on.
I got the
dad. I got the dad. You can call me daddy if you want.
I got the bat because I like
the
bat with the nail is my weapon of choice.
He's coming, Jason.
He's coming. That's how it starts. That's how it starts.
My friend bought it for me because he knows I won't do it, but he's like, here's the bat. So.
We're gonna get you cable whenever he shows up again, Rob.
Every adventure has a first step.
Brilliant platform where you can't buy a skin and you just wait for a year until this comes out. But all right.
Oh, fear of missing out is taking all of my money, Rob. Trust me.
I don't have that. I go, okay, I missed out. I don't have it. So
you have kids. Have some kids, and oh boy,
I am a kid. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
biggest man child there is. So. But what the hell was I saying? Like that, but the Stranger, when they say Stranger Things, the suits, I think they think, oh, it's little kids going on adventures. But when you watch Stranger Things, you're like, no, man, it's a police officer whose daughter dies horrifically of cancer, and has to then cut open a body of a kid with a knife to see if it's fake. You know, and you know if there's stuffing inside,
it's the reality versus the corporate high concept reality. Like the corporate
Stranger Things, you have to go there, Jason. You have to go there. Like
for me, the actual like high concept thing of Great Stranger Things that works for me is the fact that they are just making VHS horror. that has been dead for years, and they brought it back. Genius, smart. That's really where the power is of that franchise and of what it did. Like the audience who loved it in the 80s, we were all experiencing VHS horror all the time. It was fantastic. And it became passe and it died away with the golden age of television, where television became like film. That really killed it. And then now that it's kind of come back in this weird Stranger Things form, I think. But so like, the studio execs always have their high concept. Like, what's Jaws really about? Well, the studio execs, the high concept is a shark terrorizes people. Actual, like, what is Jaws really about? It's not that. It's about a father connecting to his family.
We don't want the shark to actually eat anybody, though. We just want to maybe hear about it. You
I
know,
I like it when it kills that hot chick and she's swimming. That part was kind of cool.
So
I was like, get her.
Like,
sorry,
you said
sorry.
I think though, but remember, Stranger Things was created because the Duffer Brothers were going to make it, and Warner Brothers, New Line, whatever.
Yeah,
it was like, we don't want the kids being killed. Make them older, and they refused to, and quit and made their own thing featuring kids and that forced Warner Brothers to make an It movie.
Yeah,
wherein they actually had kids in it. And when they had a sequel that didn't have kids in it, no one watched it.
Yeah, so every time a good creator jumps onto an IP that you love, there should be one tier of happiness and one tier of sadness for that original thing that they didn't create instead. You know, that's the way I kind of feel about it. Every time I hear an announcement, I'm like, oh, yeah, all right. You know,
but I feel that mentality. I agree with that, but I also feel that mentality is there with Star Wars, like because you have a studio that says, we got a Star Wars land, we can't have kids in danger, but we're going to put kids in danger, but not really in danger. It's like, what messages are you sending? You're either giving people legitimate, like, dramatic moments that they can latch onto and feel emotionally, or you're just trying to milk that member berry shit dry for all it's worth. And I think it's dry now. I really don't think. I mean, you can do a trailer. I was saying this on Santa the other day before the Echo trailer came out. Meg had typed in something like Star Wars is dead or something like that. She didn't say it that way, but she was saying something.
Meg really wants Josh to be her friend this week.
And so I was like, we all know we're just one good trailer away from everyone forgiving all of this.
Yeah.
Like, like that's the reality. I mean, look how much the Phantom Menace pissed off half the planet. And then there's a 30-second trailer with Vader breathing 2 years later. And the whole internet was like, oh, it's going to be amazing. 30 seconds, Jason. Nothing's changed. And then Echo came out that day. I'm like, oh, look, wow, all of MCU. We don't know if that show's good or not. I'm not saying
no. I know one thing. I went and saw shit from it at D23, and it was a fucking abortion, Michael, an abortion. And then I went and saw that trailer and I was like, this looks fantastic. What the fuck is happening? You know what I mean? I don't know what that show is.
But Jonesy, you know in the Stranger Things season 3 and 4.
For the listeners, Jonesy said Game of Thrones had new characters every episode. Anyone could die at any time. This made it exciting in addition to lots of nakedness and fucking. In Star Wars, we know who survives. Unpredictability is key.
Except they're taking away the nakedness and fucking.
Well, but then
complains about that, right?
Well, Andor added the fucking. Andor had the unpredictability for we know Andor can't die, but anybody else can, and it's still the least successful Star Wars show.
No one thinks Eleven's gonna die in any of these episodes. Not maybe until the very end of the series, but no one's
that shark gets there.
Might die.
And
I want that shark to get her when she's swimming.
And House of the Dragon, because I don't know if they're referring to that as well in this, but they had a lot less nakedness and fucking.
It did,
right?
And
as
the episodes, and as the episodes went on, it gained viewership week on week because of it's the old thing of word of mouth. It's like back in the day when like Lost was out or Breaking Bad or something, it was the water cooler stuff. You go to work, you talk to your coworkers about it, and like it was that. Like House of the Dragon felt like it did that again.
And the shows are filled with people they're suffering real consequences for their choices. They're not going, well, we'll talk about it later, and then we'll talk about it later, and then they just never bring it up again.
But
they're not doing that.
Like in terms of, we were just going to gauge art here. I know, like, you and I love Better Call Saul. You love it too, right? Right, Bespin? Yeah. I think you love it too.
Yeah,
we all love it. We all love it. But then, like, it's numbers. It's not rewarded for being good, was it? Not enough.
Well, you know.
Weird.
But
It's just
enough
it's a
where
weird.
everyone made money though. You know, the question is, and
They finished it, so that's a success. We have it forever. Like that's a great success. I'm not taking that away from it. I'm just saying,
it
like,
sets up AMC for being a place known for quality. Disney and them,
but
when
then
you start
then they fucking raped fucking the Anne Rice franchise. They did a horrible job with that, and they're going to crash it all for nothing.
not a fan of using that word to describe
I know
it.
it came out. Okay, it just comes out sometimes.
I know.
But no, but I mean, there is no better word than the bastardization of Anne Rice's work than what they
I'm a
do
bastard.
to it. You know what I mean? Though I'm a
better.
bastard too, so
that's
I could use it.
Use that one.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. Like they've gone to me, and like now I'm like, oh, AMC in 2023 doesn't know its ass from its elbow. It doesn't matter what they did for the last 15 years, because currently they got a bunch of jabronis running it. Is jabroni a word I could still use? I don't even know.
Jabroni.
But we got a bunch of jabronis. You know what I mean? It's terrible. It's fucking awful. Yeah, but that's but all of this I think speaks to the actual like streamer's position. What have we seen in the last 6 months during the strikes and the talks with David Zaslav and Bob Iger becoming besties? We've seen that they're all like, you know what? We tried to reinvent the wheel, and we're going to go back to the old ways, to the old model, to the old television model that worked. In fact, let's just buy Comcast and do that. That's where we're at. So I kind of would not be surprised if we start to see shows either premiering on TV, like on FX and stuff like that, or whatever, and Hulu, as well as Disney Plus, or showing up on Disney Plus and then being rebroadcast on to cable later on. I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know if this happens over there. I assume it would, but like for the Yellowstone franchise and the spin-offs, over here, what they were doing was on the networks that Paramount owned, they were showing the first episode of say 1923.
Yeah,
it would air on it, and then it'd be like, well, if you want to watch more of it, you've got to subscribe to Paramount Plus, and it would be like promotions throughout the the commercials and so on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that. That one day we'll see a Star Wars show premiere on ABC at the same time as it does on Disney Plus, and trying to encourage people to go that way. But speaking of Yellowstone, that's one of the most watched shows, like worldwide, especially in the States, and that is on linear TV.
Right.
It then goes to Peacock, like for people to watch it. But again, it's still one of the most watched shows, just as we talked about with House of the Dragon and The Last of Us, and Euphoria. Euphoria is the biggest, now the third most successful HBO show, like only behind House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones.
Right.
And again, that is,
and it's not fantasy.
Network.
It's not fantasy. No. It's not.
No, and it is on a linear network and simultaneously with a streaming platform. So yeah, I think maybe if maybe in the future Disney does that, maybe they should consider. I think from what we've gathered today, they should. But the thing,
they used to make Touchstone pictures. They used to make Down and Out in Beverly Hills. Disney. They used to make. I mean, like they that was the whole letter that Katzenberg wrote to Disney. Like, we used to do this, and it turned into Dick Tracy making $100 million movies trying to compete with Batman, but making the Disney version of Batman, which tanked. And I sort of see a parallel here. Like making the Disney version of Stranger Things is not going to work for them. They're going to have to actually make something that has real teeth. Making this watered down version, you can get the real thing over here.
Wait, what watered down version? What do you mean?
Well,
Skeleton Crew is the natural comparison,
right? And I've heard, but also they're doing it with Marvel in terms of like their younger heroes. I could see the same mentality of let's get the younger kids in here. Like those younger kids aren't experiencing. Like, I liked Hawkeye, except for when Kate has to fight Kingpin. That was the Stranger Things moment of her having to fight a real monster, and they turned it into a cartoon fight. It was literally a cartoon. You could have just put whips and zooms behind the hits. It's like, what if she fought a real monster, lost, got the shit, but survived? And it's like, wow, not many people survive an encounter. You didn't win, but she met a real shark in the water, and that's where you can go, okay, that's scary, but that's the good kind of scary kids kids want to be scared. Five Nights at Freddy's goofy, but
Yeah.
kids like scary games. There's nothing wrong with that. Like,
Yeah, no, Hollywood and the music industry before the year 2000 and before blockbusters became like what they were, everything was around like, yeah, it's okay. It was okay to fail to some extent. Not every picture needed to be a hit. Now, if you had consecutive failures, you were done. But they would allow you to kind of make a picture and a record and get out there and get known and get some prestige. They knew back then how to use prestige. And there was more of like, yeah, it's okay that this filmmaker didn't make the #1 film, but it's a very good film. So I'm glad that we made it. And then something else would come that would be a big hit, and then that would bankroll everything. And like the record industry was that way too. Like, you know, you wouldn't get Queen today. Queen had 4 failures before Night at the Opera. It wouldn't happen. And so today they're kind of struggling with that they're trying to go back to the old model. But then we also have somebody like Zaslav who doesn't believe in the prestige, doesn't care, thinks it's pretentious. I think that's my interpretation of it. Does that seem fair, Bespin? Like, I think that's where like the struggle is kind of at for the current model that they're moving back to and how they're going to handle it. Because how do we get the good shows if you just want the big shows to end up bankrolling everything, but then you treat everything as if it's a one-off, you know?
I think at the moment we've seen it be said with Zaslav and Iger that they're both going to lean into their proven franchises and proven IP. You know, next year we're going to see another Game of Thrones spin-off go into production. Again, we're not going to go into Star Wars territory with it, but we're going to probably get one Game of Thrones show a year. Right? You'll have House of Dragons 1 year, Hedge Knight the year after.
Yeah.
And then maybe if they eventually greenlight the Jon Snow one or whatever. And we're seeing it then with Paramount as well. They're starting to expand their proven franchises like the Dexter franchise and Billions. They do spin-offs of those.
Right.
And again, that's what Bob Iger is doing at Disney. He's talking about it. He wants to lean into Avatar. He wants to lean into Star Wars, Marvel, all of it. He wants to produce less shows, but he still wants to lean in and rely upon the proven IP. Like when you hear him talk about greenlighting sequels to Frozen and wherever else, everybody at the moment is just going to the safe options. Game of Thrones to HBO is safe.
What they think is safe, and it's not safe.
Right.
There are no safe options. You know, this is like they made a Frozen 2. Did it have the same cultural impact as Frozen 1? No. Like that's not.
But it was free money.
But this is currently where their heads are at. Like because of where we have been through COVID and from like the strike and the not the collapse of streaming services, but like the cost of them. And the realization of like all these companies said they're going to become profitable within X amount of years, and that all seems unlikely for all of them now. You know, they're now having to backpedal and try and cut costs on budgets and produce less shows.
Here's what's crazy though, Bespin. The reason why they're not profitable is because they can't charge individually. Let's say I don't know, $20 a ticket, or in the case of video games, $60 a ticket for these things. You know, they're charging monthly subscriptions. Had they put this kind of money and effort into their own video games, right, they would have made all their money back by now. Like they could have put 80 million into Metal Gear 4 and made 400 million. It's you know, in sales back from that. That's what that game did. So like they're just not thinking like but they got to put 250 million into a series, right, to make $10 a month back from somebody. Like that's the thing that doesn't make any sense. Like
right,
that,
and again, like they've seemingly learned from like the other budget. Like She-Hulk had 25 million an episode, which is insane. Like Secret Invasion was 220 million to produce, and they've realized they're that way. Look, they just don't want to get into producing video games. They're more than happy to license out their IPs and take whatever percentage they get from the game sales or wherever. That seems to at least be Disney's like bag at the moment. Whether that's right or wrong,
it's a dumb bag, but I know, like, I get it. Yeah,
like obviously Warner Brothers, they still have Warner Brothers games. They're currently producing is it the Harry Potter like Skywalker Saga equivalent? You know, and obviously Skywalker Saga did well for Warner Brothers because they own TT Games. they're trying to lean into games. They had a bunch of like they had Golem Cut recently, which was horrendous, right? And
Well,
I think they have
again, they sold that to someone and someone made it super cheap. Hurts the whole IP. Hence, I don't believe in that model. I think they should be doing that internally in the way they just in the way they used to make animation is the way you make games. Same kind of budget with a higher return. You know,
if Disney doesn't want to get into games, and it seems like they don't outside of licensing
because the
IP.
people in charge are old. They're older than us, and they don't get it.
Right? Yeah.
You know, like so
talked
it's like
about this.
they have a leadership problem. You know, they have a leader that is out of touch. I'm not saying with live service or free to play mod. I'm not saying it.
Hey man, Bob Iger's a cool guy. He gets what the youth are doing. Come on.
Let's see what the sales of Spider-Man 2 are compared to every superhero movie that's come out in the last 2 years. You know, when everything's said and done. Like, gonna wonder.
Hey man, pass Bob Iger the spliff, man. He wants to just hang out and he's fucking party, dude. No, sorry.
No, it's like the only way to do cheap superhero stuff as a television show is to supplement is less superpowers and more violence. Like that's it.
Yeah,
that's the reality. They need more drama, and so you can't do a CGI led characters superhero show for $100 million. You can't barely do a movie with that kind of money for all CGI characters. So it doesn't make any sense as even a TV. You need boots on the ground, Blade, Daredevil, these kinds of characters. You know, the Turtles in a way would be something. Turtles in suits, right? Not CGI turtles. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna. I mean, we'll see if Echo pans out, but that's the only way to do it.
I do think as well with so you know over the last few years, people have said there's no abundance of Marvel and Star Wars content, right? In when they're producing movies and not in Star Wars' case, but there's movies and TV shows being made, and you know there's always something available. You know, you go to almost every quarter and there's a new show available, whether it's from Marvel or Star Wars or wherever it is, right? And then you look at how TV was when Breaking Bad was on and when Game of Thrones is on. And then you even switch it to now where it's like Yellowstone and House of the Dragon, The Last of Us, Euphoria. They don't come around that often. House of the Dragon is averaging like every 2 years. It releases the same thing will be done for The Last of Us. Euphoria is even a little bit longer. And Yellowstone is maybe once a year, with the exception being now because of the cost of stuff and the strike. But that is all eventized TV. When one of those shows comes back or premieres, it feels like an event. And it feels as if you have to be sort of part of the moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this weekend, like Fortnite, like me and Jason have talked about it again, just to compare this thing, be part of something. But Fortnite went from 30 million average players to 15, like a month. They do this OG thing on the weekend, and it had 44 million players in one day. And it's new players, it's old players, but people came back because they wanted to feel part of something. It was an event, right? So, and that's what I think we need to start applying probably to Marvel and Star Wars. I know Bob Iger said they are going to cut the number of shows for both. You know, less Star Wars, less Marvel, and focus on the quality of both of those things. And that might still be the way to go, is because they're in a weird place of most people who subscribe to Disney Plus are probably watching the Marvel or the Star Wars content, if not both, right? And so they need to walk a line of there needs to be enough content on there to retain the subscribers, which is apparently what they're wanting to do. That's their focus, is to retain subscribers because costs are going up and people are canceling subscriptions or whatever. But they can't have it too frequent. And
they need new content to fill in the gaps, and that new content really, I hate using that fucking word content, but that's what they're calling it now.
Yeah,
is the people that you would have back in the day, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, would have made it Down and Out in Beverly Hills, would have made a Pulp Fiction, would have made one of those sort of R-rated. Now need to make a series on the Disney Plus Hulu thing. You know, like Only Murders in the Building probably should have been on Disney Plus. You know. Like they kind of like the Prey, the alien thing, that stuff needs to fill in that gap, you know, like it can't all just be on the heads of Star Wars and Marvel to save a thing called Disney Plus, you're going to kill everything. Like
I think they should kill Disney Plus.
I'm with you at this point. Like honestly,
I think they would be better off not running that whole platform or a platform and selling the stuff to Netflix and selling it to everybody else who will pay for it.
Yeah.
But I think that it's like the streaming wars joke. It's about trying to get that platform, and the Hulu and Disney Plus merger for the United States will make things a little bit more right, I think. But if it looks like it's going to take fucking 10 years for that to become what they want it to be, I don't think it's worth it at that point. Yeah.
But this is the thing, they need to, again, they bought Fox for like billions and whatever, right? And they haven't really focused much attention on that. So Rob mentioned like Alien and the Predator.
Alien and Predator shows. They can't do Terminator, but
there's an Alien show next year and it's going to be on Hulu. Like, again, over here in the UK and the rest of the world, it's on Disney Plus, but like over there. And, so they are going to try and make use of it. And once they obviously buy the remainder of Hulu, and that merger on the services happens, like I said, I think with you guys, you'll have what we have, and it'll just be a Hulu tab on your Disney Plus service, and probably the other way around as well. There'll probably be a Disney Plus tab on the Hulu app, and maybe then they can start to do it. But I think what the most successful shows of the last few years have taught us is it's eventized TV. And Star Wars and Marvel need to become eventized TV. But we're in a position where, as we talked about, they're so reliant upon those two franchises at the moment. And for Star Wars, particularly, it hasn't had a movie. So the whole franchise is relied essentially on TV shows. But we're going into possibly a year, 2026, where we have 2 Star Wars movies, which is doubtful. But again, it might also have other shows around it.
It might happen. It might happen.
We might have 2026 where we have Star Wars shows airing and we have Star Wars movies releasing. So Kathy had said this quote last year or this year. She wants to eventize Star Wars or whatever, like the movies like James Bond.
Oh, that's never been done before.
Right. And again, obviously that's not happening because she wanted 2 movies out within 7 months of each other, right? And then 1 a year. But that's not the case, and just obviously shows between it. But I think Star Wars does need to be eventized.
Imagine if Indiana Jones, they had skipped that movie and just made a video game, given that there's no Uncharted in 5 coming in sight. You know what I mean? And just stole that Uncharted money from people.
Well, it's
and
funny
did
that
treasure hunting, and you could
but we can't say. But that's you're making a movie. You're making an investors argument. They shouldn't be investing in movies. They should be investing in video games. But we're talking about the movies.
To an 81-year-old Indiana Jones. No, I don't think they should.
Nobody would say that though. Everybody, that's the most crazy example that you could have pulled out because everybody agrees with that. Indiana Jones should have been $130 million movie. Just looking at it.
Yeah, but
we got the same people in charge saying they want to eventize Star Wars when Star Wars was the event.
But even if we don't look at
But why is it eventized, Rob? It's because they fucking hold it back for a decade. No, they hold it back for a decade, and that's the whole thing. Is you cannot eventize Star Wars and have it come out with any regularity at all. It's just not really. That's why I disagree with Kathleen Kennedy's take on that. I don't even agree with that take because I think you can make just as much money or you can make it just as much money or make as much viewership by spreading it around and doing a lot more. It's better for the industry. It's better for everybody involved.
Marvel movies a year, Jason. For 10 years, it still made an event out of the 4th and 5th Avengers.
Yeah, I completely do not agree with anybody who says that a Marvel movie has been an event for a long time when there's 3 a year. I disagree. That's why I don't see most of them because I don't care. I think
the Avengers movies will be events.
Avengers movies those are a culmination of things. 100%.
Right.
Yeah, completely agree with that. There's Fortnite OG is an eventized event when everything in that game is supposed to be an event. They found a way of doing it. Star Wars, I mean, just to be real, if you're going to have multiple shows, multiple characters, multiple timelines and stuff like that, and it's not going to eventize a goddamn thing. It's just not going to happen.
It's not. No, absolutely.
I don't think so anyways. I would love to be wrong, but I don't know how you do that.
Like I said, we started this show today talking about the viewership, of the Star Wars shows and the Marvel shows as well. And the only way that goes up when we compare it to what's happening with the other networks, with Paramount, HBO, and wherever else, eventizing stuff is probably the way forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I want as much, I wouldn't say as much Star Wars content as I get, but I want Star Wars as frequently as I've been getting it, because I've enjoyed most of the output. You know, and you know, going back to if it's one show a year or one movie a year, no show that year, that's fine, because it'll go back to.
And it needs to be a consistent
Okay.
show. Like, to eventize the shows, there needs to be a Stranger Things, a Game of Thrones, a Mandalorian, or a Knights of the Orb, a series you can latch onto.
Hear me out.
For several seasons.
You don't eventize the shows. You eventize the movies. You let the shows just satiate, and you just feed it.
Yeah, but that means there needs to be a storyline that's either happening in the movies that's consistent across all those films.
But you have to draw a line. I don't think you could eventize all of Star Wars. I don't think you could eventize movies and TV shows.
A Star Wars film when every film's going to be a different storyline.
I don't know if you can eventize a Star Wars film when fans are confused that the TV shows aren't the films. It's really complicated.
But that's because there's a bunch of different shows. There isn't a show you're watching. Like,
I think it's because there hasn't been a movie.
There hasn't been just getting the Mandalorian, and you're on season 4 of it. The way you were just getting Clone Wars. Imagine if there was no Clone Wars season 2, 3, or 4. There was like 6 episodes of a Clone Wars and 6 episodes.
I could imagine
of a Plo Koon and 6 episodes of a Mace Windu and 6. It'd be confusing to people. They have to stick with one running storyline. Develop it through.
There hasn't been a Star Wars film since the TV shows have been hitting. And that has confused the audience because they're massively stupid. And
there's also been multiple Star Wars shows, not one show.
When that first new movie comes out, the first movie since the Disney Plus era, it needs to fucking rock and roll, man. It needs the visuals. I don't care if it's X-Wing fighters and they can do it X-Wings on Disney Plus. It needs to be something I cannot get anywhere else but a fucking movie theater. And when I saw Indiana Jones, I liked that movie. I think it's a fine fucking average Indiana Jones film. But did it fucking rock my socks off and fucking like throw me on the floor? Could I, no, it didn't do that. And that's what they were trying to do. So I don't.
Indiana Jones that came out a year and a half later didn't have Indiana Jones in it. It was just this overword for a world of Indiana Jones. You would reject it.
The Jones verse.
If the Rey movie is a big hit, has his amazing visual effects, blah, 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 the next movie that comes out isn't tied to that storyline. You're going to confuse folks, man. Like, they're not. That's the problem.
No, and that's where your Game of Thrones and your Stranger Things has it easy, and Stranger Things also has it easy in the fact that it's set in real life. So when they set one, in the 90s or something like that, it's like, oh, I know this isn't stepping on the toes of the other thing. I could tell it's 1990 because they're listening to "Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him" or whatever. You know what I mean? There's like things that would like that set that apart. With Star Wars, though, there is no way to maximize your profits and your potential of Star Wars by eventizing it and only keeping to one timeline or one thing, because then it's all High Republic or it's all Darth Vader. It's all like none of that makes me happy.
With the Star Wars movie, you said like they shouldn't eventize the shows, right?
Yeah,
like
I don't think
if the Star Wars movies,
Kenobi shouldn't have been a series. Kenobi should have just been a fucking movie. Like that would have been an event, and that's why the show ultimately fails. Because
I think they are making too many shows. Star Wars. So in the movie year in 2026, if there's 2 Star Wars shows and a Star Wars movie, like that's too much for that. You need to build anticipation for even just the Star Wars fans to be like, this is what you're getting this year. Go and see it. Go and support it. Like, and
it needs to be a Star Wars show that's telling a consistent storyline, not 4 or 5 of them,
and I agree
until
with
it's
that
done,
as well.
and then start a new thing. Because look, imagine if Breaking Bad season 2 wasn't Breaking Bad season 2. It was 6 episodes of Jesse Pinkman, and then 6 episodes of his stupid friend in the phone outfit, and then Better Saul for 6 every.
I like this idea. You're selling me on it right now.
Yeah, sure. No one would have. I'm telling you, it's confusing for the normal folks.
Right?
No, As evidenced by El Camino.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
but even so, I don't know if you've kept up with any of the Marvel like reports through the trades in recent weeks, but like one of them was that Marvel have realized that they've done too many individual shows, and what they've learned with Loki in particular is people, like as Rob was saying, they want to connect with one character and one series, right? And they just want that told over multiple seasons, and they're going to start doing that, and they're going to take a bit more of a traditional TV approach to some of those things.
Star Wars fans already do it with their timeline. So like you have a bunch of fans who just want Clone Wars timeline stuff. You got a bunch of fans who want the High Republic timeline. I'm not in that group, but there's a bunch of them. You got people who want, I guess at this point people are a little tired with the OT, but you know what I mean. They're into timelines. So these shows, I know they're jumping around different timelines, but they're not consistent. Run the story through. If they just done 4 seasons of Mando and concluded it by now, Mando is complete. So if Mando shows up in a movie, that's fine, but that story is complete. And now we're doing an Ahsoka series for 4 seasons, and then we're going to do an Andor thing for 4 seasons. Then they can build an audience that jumps to one or the other. But they're trying to get everything at once. The greed of it is really the heart of the problem. They're trying to do one of every. I don't even know how the studio develops 7 different timelines. They can't. That's why everything feels the same, even though when they're not supposed to. You're like
to be fair with Star Wars on Disney Plus, they haven't done any. They've only done Kenobi, and then everything else. So it's kind of
always talking to the average, not just the I'm talking to the people at the barber.
No, but what I'm saying is Disney Plus Star Wars has been basically one timeline, and then we have Andor and Kenobi, which are the first 2 that kind of like.
When I tell you to make another Fallen Order game, you immediately think Cal Kestis, right? Wonder what Cal's going to happen next. You're not wondering. I wonder who it's going to feature this game, right? Like you're not. That's the problem. When you see Star Wars is on Disney Plus, they don't know what it's going to be about.
But like Marvel can go. Oh, we're going to do Marvel Coffee Shop, and Thor and Black Panther and anybody they want, Spider-Man, they could all stop by that coffee shop any fucking time they want to. Star Wars doesn't have that because Star Wars, this saga's World War II and this one's Vietnam and so on, stuff like that. So it's like in order for them to maximize the use of their like best IP characters, they do have to do they can't do that. They can't do what Marvel does at all. They don't have that luxury because of that. But
they are doing the Marvel thing of in the Mandalorian universe. They're like, oh, Boba Fett's coming here now, and Ahsoka's here, and Luke Skywalker and stuff.
And they're going to do the Avengers as a film. Yeah, right, I mean they're but like that's like in that thing they are doing that.
But I think what they need to have, and I think this might be to Rob's point, was every year they need to have this is the Star Wars show.
Right.
It's not just we have this one, and this one. This one has the kids. This one is like set, hundreds of years before the first Star Wars, like before the Phantom Menace. This one is post Return of the Jedi, whatever. Like you need a position where like this is the Star Wars show.
I agree with like Rob's take that he classically has said too, of like wouldn't it be better to have 16 episodes of Ahsoka and have all of that stuff go through instead of having Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew and Andor or whatever happens.
You can't have their cake and eat it too, Jason. I know they're like, well, these characters aren't going to appear for 4 years. You're not going to see Anakin for another 4 years until we do a series. That's what will have Anakin in it. That's what will keep it an event. But you can't be like, we got to have them be able to get together whenever they want. That ain't working. Like it's worked in a short end. It's worked in the short term, but long term, it's hurting everything. So that way of thinking it's the wrong way of thinking.
I think the way that the future of this is going to go is I think Filoni is going to. Number one, I think that what we're discussing is already dead. I think Filoni is going to start making Star Wars films, and let's just pretend it doesn't bomb. Okay. It doesn't bomb. I don't think he goes back. I think once that film happens, I don't know how much more of the Mandalorian universe stuff we get from those guys. I think they start making films. Unless
they just palmer off on Famiua and other people who've been heavily involved with the process of those seasons.
That's definitely like what would end up happening to something like Skeleton Crew, to like if it needed more, it was to finish out. I think it tapers off though. And I think that Acolyte I think that they are personally highly invested in that. And if the Acolyte series ends up being like really strong, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a complete separation of what's going on in Disney Plus and the shows, and then what we have going on in film.
But then we do have
4
the
or 5
problem.
seasons of the Acolyte. You know what I mean? Like give those characters legitimate arcs that go through that we all build up and you build an audience. It's not going to be for everyone. It's not going to save their Disney Plus, but 50 shows ain't saving their Disney Plus. So you may as well not kill your brand and build up an actual fan base that will buy all your
but we just looked at all of the numbers as best as we can. We don't know exactly how dead Disney Plus is. We don't know how much like we don't really know like how much better does Disney Plus need to be do for them to be like moderately happy. I think
that was the point I was bringing up. Like, what are they expecting?
Yeah, what do they expect?
We don't know,
and they don't, because they don't know what they're doing. They're having to pretend that they know when they're just not telling us, but they don't actually know. They just know that when they put out a show and like, oh, it doesn't have like huge numbers and it costs a lot of money, but then we made like a lot of money on merch. Well, it kind of seems worth it, we think, but they don't really know. And that's why we said Andor got a season 2, but why it's not getting a season 3, and why they decided to just make it shorter, we think. Shogun Orda gave a $5 super chat, also a channel member. Thank you, Shogun. Says, my gut says Ahsoka was just over the line of okay to justify season 2. But if you apply the matrix of cost, does it fall under the line to warrant a season 2? And that's always the big question, because if you don't make any more of it, you can't grow it. But if it's already like going to fail, I think what they do is they look at how, if this did grow realistically, if this grows, what does it grow into? And I think that's why like Mando they would allow to do what it's done, but like Andor they won't, because they know it will never grow. Andor will never grow into something that is worth the investment, I guess.
Deep Space Nine came out at the tail end of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which had a huge fan base. Yeah. Deep Space Nine, DS9 cost way more than The Next Generation. It had way more characters. It had a giant set, giant promenades with multiple shops. It had a CGI character who did the T2 morphine thing at least once an episode, and the ratings were way down. Yeah. And so what did they do? Just cancel it? No, they got better at writing. They built those characters up. They brought in people to help, brought in some characters brought in Worf to help spice up the show or whatever, but not just as a gimmick, built the Klingons in as an actual adversary. Give people an adversary that they know, because they don't really relate to this Dominion and this weird Balkan War parallel storyline. So you could take Ahsoka and iterate on it, but you can't iterate on it if you just quit and say, we'll dump it in the movie theaters. And then when it doesn't do great as a movie, say Star Wars movies are dead. Like, they need to build off this with quality writing, and just, like, no one does. I've not seen anyone see the Ahsoka series and go, I hate them characters. No one's been like that. It's just been like, well, maybe it's not as cool as it could be, like maybe Thrawn's kind of just, I don't know, whatever, ambivalency. Like, that's all just a creative thing you can fix. Outright rejection is nipples on the batsuit. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's outright rejection. That's not working. And you could try to force that down people's, toys or whatever, but it's not happening. Like as much as I love Batman Forever, that is not the way to do Two-Face. Don't do that ever. Like it's not helping anybody. Yeah. So I just think like they got to give this a shot versus, what is the end game at the end of the day? They make nothing. We all go home. Okay, what else are they gonna make? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I mean, look how well they don't even know how to do that at this point, Jason. They're human one day and the Robert Zemeckis CGI monsters the next. Like, they don't know what to do over there.
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, it's like I have like, I don't know, sympathy for Lucasfilm in particular, because I think that this is super hard, and I don't think that there's any one right answer to any of the stuff at all. Like, I just think that, like, if you do this, why didn't you do that? If you do that, you could have done this. It's just a circular kind of thing. So what I end up caring about more specifically is that content is getting released. And that's the thing. That's why, like, you know, it's very frustrating that we haven't had a Star Wars film since 2019. But also, like, look at the amount of television shows that we've had, the amount of like Star Wars. Like, I feel like Andor gave me like 3 or 4 Star Wars films. You know what I mean? In that first season. So in a way, it's like, it's good as a fan of the stuff. You know, it's always good to have like that amazing first screening at a, you know, of a movie in a theater and shit like that. But the realistic side of it is this stuff is on our televisions at home, and we rewatch it like over and over again over the years. And so on one hand, I'm not completely like, you know, like the era to me doesn't feel like a wash, but I also think that yet they need to kind of get that film slate up and running. And I think when that happens, if they knock that out of the park with the films, if they really are great films, I think it's going to inspire probably the third generation of Disney Plus shows that will then maybe even do better for them. I think that could happen. I think that's completely like possible. But I see the Mandoverse stuff and this current stuff dying out, Acolyte taking over, the films releasing, and then the Acolyte, and then that stuff from those films going on to Disney Plus, while potentially the Acolyte content jumps to film. Because regardless of what they say, I don't give a fuck if they ever admit it. I know for a fact, 100% concretely, that the High Republic era was kicked off to make a fucking Yoda movie. That was the point. And they're going to get their fucking Yoda movie, man. They're going to get it. But I think Grogu has been kind of we can kind of hold off on that. We're kind of doing good with this other little green guy and so on. But I see as it moves forward, I think we end up going I think that's what happens. And there'll be a whole new mistakes at that point. Whole new mistakes being made.
And the biggest creative success they've had this year is Fallen Order. And it just gets ignored. And I think that it gets ignored by Disney, right? I'm not saying by the fans or by marketing or whatever, by Disney. Yeah. You know, that celebration comes along. That's like the 4th panel, you know, in the bottom tier. Yeah, whatever. We're past all this other stuff. And I
don't think they had a panel for it this year.
Really?
There you go.
Yeah. I think they just put it on like this Star Wars live stage. He just went on. He did, right? Just went out and showed a trailer, I think. No. I can't remember what they did. They did something. No, he just came out and gave a poncho away and like talked about it, and that was it.
You could buy a $200 lightsaber at Disney Galactic Edge if you go.
Yeah, they were. I saw Asatrue mentioning the fact that on the current EA earnings call, they were supposed to bring, like, he was like, are they going to bring up this Star Wars Survivor for the old systems thing that they announced? Nothing. They didn't say anything about it.
Talking about the success of that though. That's presumably why they're making it for last gen. Yeah, because they didn't see the sales that they wanted. So now they're like, well, there's 114 million PS4s in the wild and wherever. Let's just get it out for that.
Yeah,
because you listen to like the game director and everybody else around it. They say they created it purely as a next gen experience, which it was. Yeah, and now EA are seemingly making them go back on that. Just for sales.
Yeah. Do you think that by doing that would allow them to maybe make like a phone port of it as well? Because like a phone could probably run that today. You know what I mean? Do you think maybe that might be like the, you know?
Well, look at the iPhone 15 Pro or whatever, right? That's currently running like Resident Evil 4 remake or something,
right?
You know, like yeah. And I think it's one of the Assassin's Creed games, the newer ones, Mirage. But like, yeah, I think eventually that'll happen. Yeah, I don't think that's what they're heading right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if that last gen version comes out. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it on like the new version of the Switch or something as well, just to get it in as many households as possible.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was like, because with Fallen Order, they were keen to rave about how well that was doing, like financially for them, how many copies they'd been selling. They haven't done that this time around.
Yeah, we knew that they would, just based off of the amount of the how many households can you sell to on that with the current gen compared to the old one, right? That was always like the uphill battle that they were going to have. And
but I think Rob knows this as well. The attach rate for like new generation games is pretty high. You know, when Sony, for example, produced a first-party PlayStation exclusive, which is only for PS5, they haven't catered to the new gen, the last gen. Sorry, like the attach rate is pretty high. Same thing with like the Switch stuff. You know, when they make it a Zelda, like so was a high attachment rate and everything. Else.
Yeah, that's why I have it.
Yeah, exactly. You're not like buying a Switch to play FIFA 23 or something.
No,
you know,
definitely not.
Or anything. So yeah. So I don't know. I think Survivor probably did let them down, even though it was a really good game. I think Survivor probably let them down in terms of sales, in contrast to Fallen Order.
Right.
You know, but
KG says so. Mandoverse is like phase 1. Well, like this is just not based off of anything but my opinion, and that's that if Filoni has a hit film, they're gonna want Filoni to make another hit film for them, and you can't have Dave Filoni hanging out making TV shows for you and making your hit films. He's just one guy. It's not. I don't think it's realistic, and I don't. And provided he makes a film and enjoys it, I would assume he knows what it's going to entail and will, and it's been around the Star Wars films for the last decade and stuff like that. So I'm going to assume he knows what he's getting into and he wants to be into it. And so I think if his movie takes off, I think that that's likely going to take Favreau and Filoni away from the Southern California film production or television shows. At the same time, I don't really. Favreau is supposed to be the producer on it, and every source I ever had around Favreau, by the way, says he does not want to go to leave Los Angeles. He's got a life and a family and friends here, and can make it here.
Anything Mandoverse outside of, and that includes the film outside of LA.
Yeah,
that's just going to be an LA thing. I think the other stuff like Acolyte, the Rey movie, Andor, wherever else, if Dawn of Jedi ever actually happens, that stuff will be here. That'll be Pinewood. That'll be Shinfield or wherever. Right. I think as long as Favreau and Filoni are producing stuff, especially as a partnership, it'll remain like Southern California.
And I don't want to speak for you, but I think it's probably going to be true. I'll speak for myself on this one. Every single source I've spoken to about the last week or so and the rumors going around, it's just been like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody knows what's going on.
No, nobody knows.
Time to lie.
So it's a good time. It's a good time to make some shit up. Is my take.
Oh yeah, it's a great. But we hear this like. Do you remember when I was telling you about like the release order and stuff? Like, months ago. Yeah. You know the guys at the time were like, if anybody tells you that that they don't know shit. Yeah. None of us know. We don't know. And then you spoke to us also not too long after, and they pretty much said the same thing. Like, if somebody says this is shooting at this time, that's bullshit. Or if this is going to release at this time, that's bullshit. And that's what we are. I don't think we're in a position where, like, Snyder even said it last week. Like, it's not just us who hear it. Like, it's also somebody like him. And he was like, he got asked about the Rey movie shooting in May. I don't even know where that came from. But
probably Chris Breezy. Chances are.
But he was like, I don't fucking know. Like, nobody fucking knows. This the strike going on. Like, like if you remember what Snyder said, like pre-strike, they were hoping to start the casting process for the Rey movie like last month. They haven't been able to do that.
Yeah.
So everything's gonna be delayed. That they now need to get their like ducks in line. And
that Rey movie is by all accounts from Pinewood side of things is fucking nothing going on. So you're telling me they don't know what's going on with the Rey movie, but they somehow, unless Filoni's movie's first now, which is not, but unless that happened, that's the only way that even begins to make kind of sense. So Royal Fino says, my friend who works on sets in Hollywood is bummed that Ahsoka is leaving LA. That they shouldn't be. He wanted to get on season 2. He can. People are saying Star Wars is done with LA. It's not. But I hope it's just rumors jumping to conclusions. It is. It's a bunch of fan mathers going and then
now we're going away, Jason.
You're going.
We're going to Aruba.
We going
Really?
to Aruba.
No,
I'm
dude,
I'm hoping to get murdered by a hot little rich white boy. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go
they said
swimming.
Aruba. They said you're going to Pinewood, buddy. It's completely
What?
different. That's not
Oh
even close.
no. No. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I
They
want to go to
say
Ibiza. Ibiza.
no. They say you're going to go for a UK tax break, is what they're saying. Pistol Pete knows. That's the only reason why.
Poutine, Jason. We gonna get some poutine.
No, that's
No?
poot.
Oh.
No, wait. Did you say poontang or poutane?
What'd you think I said?
Both are in Canada, so maybe make
But
your
let's
Star
go
Wars
to
movie in Canada.
Canada. All right, go.
Use a Canadian crew. Maloney, you can do it.
I'm gonna use a Canadian crew. I'm gonna use them live.
That guy just mentioned like the UK tax break, but like there's only so many productions you can shove into Pinewood. Like
Yes.
Disney have a deal with Pinewood, yes, but like that's not just like it's not just because we love
We
Star Wars.
going to Kokomo to get Kokomo tax breaks. I got the perfect song. Hold on, I'm okay.
It's just like
Well,
we like Star Wars, so we think about the Star Wars stuff. But
yeah,
Disney
I don't
using
want.
Pinewood for like the Disney remakes, and they're using it for the Marvel stuff and everything else and in between. They're not just using it for Star Wars.
And I heard that they do the equivalent of like a subletting.
Mm-hmm.
They when they have space, like they own the space, they have it blocked out for them. They can also rent that out. I don't know exactly.
I like timeshare and Plo Koon's little, you know what I'm saying? Like his little spot. Like I just like the timeshare.
Like it's impossible to shove all the Star Wars stuff into Pinewood.
Well, and that's
you could fit it all in there. You know?
No, but they
know what you're doing
when they were doing Rogue One and they were doing The Last Jedi simultaneously. It was to such a degree that parts of those movies were not made at Pinewood, and people don't realize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I accidentally directed some Rogue One that day too. I didn't even know I was directing.
Oh man,
we was just all up on one another, sliding around. And next thing you know, I'm directing Vader.
Filoni thought he was in Aruba directing an orgy, and he walked onto the set at Pinewood in a completely different country, and he gave us the Darth Vader sequence, and then Gareth.
Now, Jason, I was directing Yezins Go Wild.
I was driving the other day, and I was just like thinking about Rogue One, and like Gareth Edwards came in my brain, and I was like, wait a minute, he was in the fucking sequence that they said he didn't direct. He's literally in the sequence.
Yeah, running.
Like, and so I tried to make like Freddie Prinze Jr. wasn't just partying hard, and I'm like, is there a chance that at the moment he was in the sequence, he was the one saying action and doing the stuff that he, the logistical work for Gareth? That's the only way I can make it make sense. That's
according to Gareth, and he did that interview recently where he's like, "No, I directed all that stuff."
He definitely directed it. I'm just like trying to make it make sense. I've seen
the creator and I've seen Ahsoka, and I can tell you which one I'm inclined to believe directed.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah, I never saw the creator. I wanted to see it, but I will rent it.
Fun, dude. I don't
It'll
care.
Be on Hulu
it's
eventually.
not as smart as you want it to be, but it's fucking cool. It's way fucking cooler than Mortal Kombat. And I love that movie, but you know what I mean, Jason? Like, way cooler than fucking Highlander. And Highlander's cool. I mean, it doesn't have Queen. But you take Queen out of Highlander, really, for real.
Steven, a while ago, it came really close to there being Star Wars productions in Australia. I had this from a really, really good source that they were like going back to where they filmed the prequels, even kind of stuff. And but it ended up none of that stuff happened. I think maybe had Rogue Squadron gone forward and they couldn't have done it at Pinewood, that they might have gone to Australia, but they didn't.
And so I think they were
nothing story, but
they were prepping Rogue Squadron at Pinewood.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it's all such a weird like clusterfuck, but I have heard of more things kind of get started and stopped, and I think things that usually get out unless I put it out or we put it out or whatever. And like on this one, on the Ahsoka one, like I would love for that to be true. Like it would be rad if all of a sudden the Ahsoka series was looking like Andor. It would be great. I would love that. I would. So this is a story where I love to be wrong, and that's the case. But
my cinematographer buddy started watching Ahsoka, and he doesn't like the visual look of it. And I was like, I think for TV Star Wars, it looks pretty good. But he has a different opinion. So, and he loves Andor. So I guess there is something the average person can't tell the difference of that is going on visually. I mean, we can tell, but at the same time, I'm like, if you're complaining about the look of this, like, I granted it's not the same level as, say, Strange New Worlds. Like, that's a pretty show, Jason. Very pretty show.
Yeah.
But they had to make a lot of shitty Star Trek to get there. We were discounting all these seasons of Discovery and a bunch of other shit they fucked up to get to that point. So I think if Filoni could just, the visual thing are not my problem. The problem is when you have characters that haven't seen each other in 20 years, don't want to have, or 10 years, whatever, don't want to have the conversations that you've been building 5 episodes to getting to. And then they never have those conversations in lieu of faux adventure. It's like, I'm just like, well,
of implication. It happened. You just weren't there, buddy. You weren't invited to the intimate moment.
I don't want. I imagine that in Stranger Things. We're like, we're not going to deal with Will disappearing. What would you see in the Upside Down? It didn't really matter. I'll tell you about it.
Yeah,
you got to deal with that.
Like, I won't spoil it, but like me and Luke watched like the end of Attack on Titan this weekend. He was super excited.
Finally
for
over the real ending.
Mm-hmm.
The real ending, right?
Yeah, it came out over the weekend. And there's like most of it, I'd say it was about 90% really good. But then there's like this one thing where it's like, this one thing happened. We don't know why. And I was like, what? It's like a pretty big deal that you just said that this thing happened, but you don't know why. And it was like,
well, to be fair, they did cut it short from the manga, right? So no, they didn't.
It's the opposite. It's the other way.
Opposite, yeah. They did it.
Haikyuu's the one they're cutting short. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, no ending is ever going to make everybody happy on every single like checkbox or whatever. It says what it is. But
more people are happy about the Attack on Titan end in the anime though than they were when the initial manga came out.
I was happy.
Yeah.
I wasn't that invested. I
don't think anyone's coming away from it like abject failure or some shit.
No. I don't think they should. I don't think that wasn't the look on my son's face after,
But wait till they get the live action Attack on Titan from a cheap Japanese studio,
I actually
it already exists.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
But I actually believe in Attack on Titan actually being a good film. I think that could be a good film, and with the way that it ends, Rob, it kind of has a Battlestar Galactica kind of thing where it's like humanity's done this before and it'll do it again. We're kind of in a loop. Humanity, civilizations rise and they fall kind of thing. They could definitely like do a video game. They could definitely do a live action film and a CGI film, whatever they want, and be like, this is just the other iteration of the cycle. And you could have a lot of the same stuff and change it up over time. So like, Bespin was showing me how that's not likely to happen at this moment, but I think it will over time. I think somebody else will own it or whatever.
Yeah, the creator, like he said he's like pretty much done with it. He doesn't even have plans to write another manga. He's got a version of Attack on Titan coming out in April, like another book. I think he talks about Levi's origins and stuff in it. I can't remember what he said.
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't even want to write anymore or anything. He just wants to go and open up a sauna in Japan.
He wants to watch naked people. He's like, I want to see people naked.
Well,
he's earned it.
I can appreciate this.
Like he was at a New York Comic Con last year, and because the manga, like the end of the manga happened like the year before, before he stepped out, they had asked like the audience to be kind to him and not to like abuse him. Because he'd been like getting death threats and like volatile abuse thrown at him because of the end of that manga.
Yeah.
And he was almost like in tears on stage because everybody was so nice and told him how much they did appreciate the ending. And I think, that's shown again now in the
guy has a wrong mentality, man. I remember working on a comic 20 years ago and the co-creator was like, we're going to get death threats. I'm like, we should run those as covers. Do the death threat cover, limited edition.
Yeah.
He chickened out.
All right. Well, anybody have anything else to say about the Ahsoka numbers before we head out?
Not really. I think we did a good episode. Yeah.
I think we did it. I think if you,
No, I ruined the show.
no, I think we
According to one guy, you ruined the show.
Well,
Yeah.
he's always right. You know.
no,
Never
but I
wrong.
mean we got down to
Funky
factual metrics. We didn't go with what we wanted things to be or anything like that, and I think that's all that you should do or can do. You know, you could hope for the best and want better from them, and we could look at what they're doing and be like, oh well, how do we criticize them? We can't criticize them accurately if we're criticizing them based off of bullshit, and that allows them to deflect from the true criticism.
I think
You
our
know?
actual shared critique, though, Jason, if I'm going to be
Mhm.
serious, is we all.
Yeah.
I don't know about Bespin, but you and me, I think we agree. They got to get rid of Disney Plus and then move the shows based on their age group they're looking to target to sell it to a platform that is appropriate for that age group. If they want to do something more mature, put it on Netflix. If they want to sell something a little less mature, sell it to, I don't know, Paramount Plus or some other shit like that. Like
Yeah,
that,
and that
Amazon.
Hulu, the Hulu acquisition and the thing together could
Second
definitely could no it really could. It could change things up massively for a show like Andor. Like
Somebody
once
just
that
said we
happens.
need
I gotta
to
tell you, I
Google Star Wars
here's the thing.
Outlaws, by the way.
I was
Yeah.
subscribed to Hulu for Only Murder season 3, right?
Yeah.
The latest season. I hate that fucking app so much, dude.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
first off, it minimizes the screen the last 10 to 15 seconds before the show ends.
Well, yeah,
So
that's
you're talking about
you're
murder
watching on a
mysteries,
on a PC, and I think that's not the most common way people use it. So I think that they like
it should
prioritize
never
those.
happen. It
It
should
shouldn't
never
happen
happen.
though.
It
Yeah,
should never happen.
I
Like,
actually watched Hulu for the first time yesterday on this computer. I was like on a computer because like for the very first time, and it was doing that as well.
But I think you
Yeah, and it's
might
like
get the Hulu content put into Disney Plus, though. I think you'll have the Disney Plus. I don't know how Disney Plus works on your computer or anything, Rob, but like it, if that's running well, I think Hulu will eventually be on that in a separate tab.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's just
the
sometimes with Disney
infrastructure
Plus,
of Hulu was built as Hulu, and whereas the Disney Plus one was a nothing service that had a great infrastructure, and that's why they bought it.
well, I
So
used to watch Hulu, 12 years ago to watch Hell's Kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Like that was because I didn't have cable.
talk about
I was like,
Ghostbusters
I'll
3,
watch- that trailer's coming out soon, by the way.
Ghostbusters 4.
The new Ghostbusters.
I know
trailer's coming out.
the fakers are saying it as well, so that's why we know
Yeah.
it's happening.
No, that's how we know.
No, it's
So they're
called what's it called? Frozen Empire,
Yeah.
which makes me feel like it's an SEO experiment on Empire Strikes Back and Frozen for Ghostbusters.
The whole goof is when hell freezes over. That's the goof, and they can't just find a way to put that in the title. So, they're trying to find they're trying to find like
Bespin
more-
thinks it's the Empire State Building, right? Is your guess?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but it's that
yeah,
like
but
at some-
the
at some
joke
point-
when that'll happen when hell freezes over. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
But
like,
yeah,
that's
this is
the
a
goof.
like what is it? This is I'd say start of the year, right? Me and
Mhm.
you were talking about
told
Ghostbusters.
me.
Like I was
True
like,
story.
they're doing all this stuff with like snow and ice, like from what I knew, people were working on it. And then I was like, they're referring to it as Hell's Kitchen, like the movie. So I
Yep.
was like, and then I went to you and I was like, wasn't the third Ghostbusters supposed to be like hell? And like, what Rob just said, hell freezes over, blah blah blah. Like that's what
Yeah.
I. And like, yeah, so
It was it called like Ghostbusters All Hell Freezes Over or some shit like that?
it was
Wasn't it
Hell's
like
Kitchen.
no, I mean the original
Oh.
Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it
something
was
like that.
called
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. So again, then we end up here, which is like, supposedly Frozen Empire.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But anyways, Bespin,
Do we need to Google Star Wars Outlaws, by the way? Or no?
No, we don't, because it's not coming out for a fucking really, really long time, Will. And we know it exists. I mean, Rob thinks they should just be putting all their money in the video games. I don't know. I'm like,
I think they should be spending the kind of budgets they're putting into She-Hulk should be put into video games, and the kind of budgets they used to put into the Daredevil series is what should be going into TV shows on
mhm.
Netflix. That's what I think. I
Yeah.
just think like that's where they're going to see their profit return come back. Like, and you're gonna be able to make things in games. They could have a whole X-Men series of badass video games by now, dude. Like with the shared storyline that you
Well-
can do at a budget on a game that you couldn't do in live action.
Or I'm going to throw it out there and say that the Star Wars games are only making a lot of money because they are eventized.
Well, same thing. I'm not saying it's about 3
I'm
games
kidding.
a year.
Yeah, I know.
You know, like you
No,
can't,
no,
it's
but I'm
impossible.
saying
The way game development is, they can't crank out a bunch of stuff. Games prevent them. They can create like costumes and loots and stuff like live event things, but they can't create new games all the time.
yeah.
You know, at the level we're talking about. So.
Yeah, no, and once again, my whole thing is though for the discussion today is we were talking about not video game numbers. We're talking about the numbers of the Disney Plus shows and how that affects. So Rob's the one who can't stay on the rails because he's a wild man.
Yeah, no. But before
I let you speak an hour before I jumped in. What are you talking about? You know, if I derailed your conversation an hour into it, then what are we talking about? Like
Will saying
you wouldn't be you.
Outlaws is still slated for next year. Like we always said, it was still slated for next year.
Yeah,
it just wasn't before April 1st. Like when it's been pushed out of that fiscal window. Like we speculated it might end up in like fall or something. You know.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be out by April 1st. That was the only thing. We're not saying it's 2025.
But it's going to feel more like a year from now than not a year from now. Is what I think.
Yeah. What are we going to do to get our numbers up on the show, Jason? That's the real question. Huh? We gotta have those thumbnails that have Bespin going with the Home Alone faces, and you know we gotta.
Well, somebody in the chat earlier said like Game of Thrones got like views for nakedness and fucking. So I just think we need to get Rob naked.
So I think your featured image should be the Khaleesi railing you with the strap on.
I knew once he got me on Fortnite, he's gonna try to get me naked, Jason. I knew this was
no, I'm gonna try to get you to be the Khaleesi when the skin comes out, and then we'll use that. We'll use footage from that on the show, and people will be like, "Man, that Rob is one sexy bitch." You know,
I can see the Sarah Connor skin. I like the.
I got it. I got it. It's not very sexy though. I don't think it's going to make our numbers go up at all.
We have different theories on this.
I don't know, man. Listen. I'm not saying you can't be attracted to Sarah Connor. I'm saying the Fortnite skin of Sarah Connor. I don't think it's going to do anything for anybody. I want
a woman who can bust me out of a third world prison. You know?
But yeah. No, but I mean, but we do have the numbers for Ahsoka or for the Star Wars shows and the Marvel shows, like at our whim now, thanks to the
many Boston's guide to bring those numbers.
No, I mean, and we could next time we have a video game show, we could bring up the video game numbers and then really compare them because we've always, I think, as a true Bespin and Rob and I, we all think that the games things is usually looked at backwards by the fandom as if jumping up to a TV show is the graduation. It's actually a demotion for those characters as the video game platform is so much bigger. You know, 30 million people play Cal Kestis, 9 million people on average see Ahsoka. It's not it's
for 40 hours, Jason. Like
for 40 hours.
About this series is 6 shows. Oh, I can't watch. Oh, it's too much hours. Then like 100 hours fucking Cal Kestis. You know, like
it's like going on the Galactic Star Cruiser with an attractive man. You come home and he gives you a laptop.
I wonder what you did on that Galactic Star Cruiser.
I did whatever it took for the show.
You didn't listen to the guy from Scum and Villainy. He went on Galactic Star Cruiser, the second to last cruise or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's having just like withdrawals. Like he went way into it, and now he's like he even owns a Star Wars bar. And he's like, it's not the same. Like people were really like, we were all in a shared universe together. And like he's like when people were pulled out of Pandora in the first Avatar movie. See, I brought it back to Avatar, and they're having Avatar withdrawals. He's having Galactic Starship withdrawals. Legit Galactic Starship withdrawals.
No, that once again was an amazing thing. It was really it was done really well, and sold by complete fucking jackasses. That's the only that's like my true review of the whole thing. It was so good, and it was sold by fucking jackasses. That's the video, by the way. Oh yeah, I know. It's on. You could watch that video on. I think you could watch it on Spotify, but the computer broke and I never got to upload it. And then my son broke my iPad. I was just having too much misfortune for a week to even acknowledge that the iPad was broken. I'm like, my phone and my computer broke. Oh, now you've broken my iPad. I'm just not going to acknowledge it. and I'm just going to move on with my life.
And Santa's talking shit about the color of your beard, so don't
What?
forget about that. Yeah, you
What?
missed that. It's in the front of the show. It's in
That's
the
some
comment.
bullshit. He's getting jealous because he sees that I'm catching up to him. He sees that pretty soon there's going to be a new Santa beard on the scene in the Star Wars sphere, and he knows at that point.
Jingle ping. Jingle ping.
At that point, you know.
Jingle ping.
But yeah. But anyways, everybody, we're gonna end the show now. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Thank you for Bespin for doing all the research, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate it
Bespin.
a lot. And Rob, glad you showed up, man. We'll be back.
That's why you didn't tell me you're trying to hide the shows from me.
No, honestly, us doing this was like last minute, and I thought it was only going to be a half hour.
I see how you get out of dates. It's a very similar conversation.
No, it's no. You're not showing up at my school. Being like,
what about the show, Jason? What about the show?
Let me in. Let me in.
Let me in. Come on, everybody, let me in.
All right,
you're a coward, Jason. You're a coward.
You guys know how bitches be.
Nah, dog.
It's the end of the show.
Come on, let's go. Hey, it's the end of the show.